Good morning. We are here for the special meeting of the Natrona County Board of County Commissioners. It is Wednesday, October 9th, 2024, 8:32 a.m. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Mayor,
Present.
Commissioner North,
Here.
Commissioner Creel,
Present.
Commissioner Milne,
Here.
Chairman Nicolason.
Here. At this time, I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of legal advice pursuant to Wyoming Statute 164405A9. And I appreciate that. And I got it. And I'm kind of on autopilot from these public meetings typically. At this time, I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of legal advice.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Friel, seconded by Commissioner Milne. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're in executive session. I don't anticipate that it'll take too long. All right, we are back after our executive session. Apologies, it took a little longer than I had anticipated. At this time, I would entertain a motion to move public comments on the agenda from item 6 to item 5.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner North, seconded by Commissioner Friel. For discussion, I would just inform the public that the vote on this matter would be before any opportunity for public comment if we leave it the way it is. And so we, as a commission, want public comment to be before a vote on this matter. And that's why we're deviating from what we have typically done at our meetings. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The public comment period is now open. Today, we need people to actually sign in, put your names. The sheet, I believe, is on the podium. So if you make public comment, please write down your name. And Commissioner Milne, you're gonna. Commissioner Milne has to step out, but he'll be attending via telephone. So come on up, and it's the standard rules. Be courteous and keep it to 5 minutes or less. Any public comment?
Your call cannot be completed. Your call cannot be.
Apologize, sorry, folks.
Any public comment? Good morning. I don't believe so. Sometimes it's on at the screen, sometimes it's on. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. My name is John Masterson. I'm an attorney in Casper. I represent Walton, Stephanie, Woodbury, and their interest in the certified letter.
John, you may have to speak a little closer to that mic. It doesn't always pick up as well as we would like for it to.
Is it on?
Appears to be on. As we all know, the
Thank you. After speaking with Mr. Heiser, I've been allowed to address you about the road and ask that you consider their concerns in the administration of the road going forward. These are good faith concerns that we feel would not be an onerous burden on the county, would be a benefit to the general public, and also recognize the importance of the agricultural use of the properties surrounding the road. Mr. Chair, I will endeavor to stay under 5 minutes. I promise you I'll be brief.
and we will be as lenient as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. As you're aware, the concerns that the Woodburys have always had concerns speeding on the road, racing on the road, mud bogging, trespassing, and the disposal of trash, particularly appliances and things along the road. As you also know, the Woodburys are agricultural land users. They run cattle. And so having the road through that property creates a number of concerns. So to the point, speeding and racing along the road damages it, endangers occupants of the vehicles and others, and risks harm to the hikers, livestock, and wildlife. We would ask that you place conspicuous and extensive signage along the road. Specifically, things such as speed limits, open range signs, and off the road where it is the Woodbury's property, signage indicating private property, no trespassing. Will those things solve all these problems? No. But it may make folks more aware, a bit more cautious, and a bit more respectful. In addition to signage, we are not road people. You have lots of people who are very good at that. But we'd ask you to consider placing some sort of mechanism on the road that would slow vehicular traffic in some areas. The things that I'm aware that are used in the city, at least, speed bumps, dips, maybe even a slight turn in the road so that people would not be able to go full bore down that road, ignoring the consequences of what could happen. That might help deter in a more active way what's dangerous to the vehicles, the drivers, occupants, safety of others, and the livestock in the area. In the winter, the county closes Circle Drive. There are a number of homeowners and landowners who need to go through that gate in the winter. They customarily use the gate that, let's see, it's a short distance from where it turns off Highway 487. It's located in the south half of Section 10, Township 31, Range 80 West. We would ask that you install a remote-controlled coded gate to replace that current gate so that when that road is closed, those people who have access to that area can get in and out of it in a more convenient and expeditious fashion. Obviously, code wouldn't be a problem because it would be your gate. That code would be available to all the first responders, as it would be, well, your code. County's also aware of the destruction of land off of Circle Drive Road. It's caused by trespassing side-by-sides, ATVs, four-wheel drive vehicles, mud bogging. When I was with State Lands, they used to call it mud bogging. And I know State Lands had a great deal of problem with people just going on and tearing up land. To deter that, avoid repeated calls to law enforcement, protect the rangeland, try to preclude some destructive erosion. We would ask the county to provide materials and equipment to place obstacles at some locations along the road to stop at least that easy access to those areas. That might take the form of boulders, guardrails, posts, just something to deter that ease by which people leave that road and tear up both public and private property. I'm sure that the landowners in that area, and I'm certain the Woodburys would be happy to help identify those areas and work with you. Finally, it's been the county's position that it's been a county road for a while. The Woodburys acquired the land in September of 2023. I am not familiar with what the county assessor has done, but we would expect that once this road is established as an official holy water put on it road, that the portions of the road that pass over their property would be removed from the tax rolls. I would ask that the commission direct that to take place. And as the county's position has been, it always has been a county road, that any tax payments attributable to the land area covered by that road be reimbursed to them if they have paid it since their date of purchase, September 5th, 2023. Despite what may have been portrayed in various forms of media or perceived by the county or said by any individual, the Woodburys really never wanted a fight. They know the importance of Circle Drive and the construction that used the road. Everything that's taken place between the Woodburys and the county can only be described as profoundly unfortunate. It's our sincere hope that Natrona County will grant these requests as set forth above. Help not only the Woodburys, but the other people who ranch out in that area. And we can all pick up and move on. If you want or need the cooperation or the assistance of the Woodburys, I'm certain that you'll have it. They're not pariahs, they're not extortionists, as some have painted them. They're ranch owners with a love for our county and our state. They seek to operate their ranch without disruption by the problems created by traffic, by trespassers, and those who would abuse the land that's both theirs, the public's, and the county's treasure. Finally, this is my personal comment. I personally regret how this has played out. Whether it's miscommunication or stubbornness or legal obstacles, the Woodburys are not evil people. They're not seeking a land grab. They're not seeking inappropriate compensation. You as commissioners, my friends, my acquaintances, I know you want to do right by the citizens of Natrona County. This has been an unfortunate situation all around. I hope the relationships can be restored, trust can be established, and we can return to a place of mutual respect and mutual cooperation. Mr. Chair, those are my comments. I do appreciate the time, and if there's any comments or questions, I would stand for them.
Thank you, Mr. Masterson. Any other public comment?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rosemary Saban, Natrona County resident. ROZMARINGCZABAN. I guess I just have some questions, and I don't expect a response, but this would be for the Woodburys. What on earth were you people thinking when you shut that road down without a court order? It doesn't seem normal or rational for people to own a property for such a short duration and irritate and aggravate the community in such a manner. I'd also like to know, where did the idea that the county had no easement or authority of this road originate from without suggestion? Where and why did a suggestion that a hangar could be exchanged as compensation to reopen the road originate from? And I would like to know, Mr. Nicolason, is it true that you've legally represented the Woodburys? That's all.
Other public comment?
Thank you.
My name's Chad Culver. I probably don't need this, but I'm here after I just discovered their plans to close that road. I've walked the road. I've driven down the road. I've lived on that mountain for 5 years now, and I bought my property with an easement for Circle Drive, which I knew, so did the Woodburys. So this is no surprise that they have to give easement. But there is no evidence of appliance dumping, any extra vehicle off-road use, or mud bogging or racing. I do race cars. And I guarantee you, if I wanted to go fast up the road, it'd be hard because that road's not that good, especially after the construction up on the mountain, which thank you, we got that done. I truly appreciate it. And Mike's been a great advocate for us up there. It upsets me as being a veteran, lifelong member, or born and raised in Wyoming, Rock Springs, whatever that might say to you guys, but I don't appreciate out-of-town people or out-of-state people coming in and deciding to change the rules. There's a lot of us that are very angry up there. I'm one of them. So, and some of you, if I've had personal conversations with, that road is accessible for an escape route. And in the winter, you know, that section is what, a quarter mile, half mile long at the most. And it's on top of a ridge, which there's no roads except one that goes off and it's gated. So to have speed bumps just in that area is just asinine. If you want to put a speed bump, put one in front of my house because it's paved now really nice and everybody's going by at 100 miles an hour. But you don't see me complaining, you know. When you buy a piece of property, you know what you're buying. And I believe this was premeditated, and I have inside source of family friends of them that have confirmed my suspicions. So I have no love for them, and they're not a very good neighbor. I just wanted to put it on record. Thanks. Culver, like Victor. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Tracy Lamont, 9855 Crimson Dawn Road, Casper Mountain. When this all came down, I set out to do some research to find, how long the county had been involved. I searched newspaper articles and do that sort of as a hobby and end up being a historian, so to speak, of Casper Mountain on occasion when I uncovered things. But there were, in 1928, there was a newspaper article, 1953 and 1958, that clearly states that the county's involvement on Circle Drive on it, and I forwarded that to the commissioners, so that should be part of your evidence that I sent earlier. I have another one, a statement that I sent to you. The documented use of Natrona County equipment on 7385 used to maintain County Road 505, also known as Circle Drive. 7385 Red Creek Fire Narrative by Tracy Lamont, and attached 7985 Star Tribune write-up of the fire. I'm going to read this to you real quickly. Please note that this narrative was initially written on May 23, 2021 and posted on the Casper Mountain Landowners Association Facebook site. What a nightmare it was the first day of this fire, 7385. The highlights of the long ago story follows. 15 of us spent 12 very long agonizing hours down in a safe zone carved out by the county dozer that luckily made it to the fire scene. The county dozer and operator had been working to the southwest of Circle Drive at that time, on Circle Drive at that time that the fire was spotted. The dozer was operated by Tom Haygood, and he had spotted the smoke and rolled our way from the southwest on a BLM forestry road to help us out in the suppression efforts. Everyone else had come in from the north through the archery range. I would like to note, too, I was responding to a fire the prior day on 7/2 of 85 on Coal Creek Road, and we passed the dozer working on the very steep hill that goes into the old, to the property of the people that closed the road on it. So the Woodberries on it, at the wooden corrals on them. So that I did witness the county dozer working the day before on the county road at that time on Circle Drive. Going back to the narrative here, shortly after everyone had arrived on scene, the fire raged up and out of the canyon, totally out of control, and overtook the access road that we all had taken to arrive at the initial fire scene. We all then very quickly retreated to a huge open meadow just to the south of where the fire had started. Tom then quickly set about using the dozer to open up a very large area by blading all the brush down to the bare ground. We all then sat back in vain on the mountain, fire trucks and other vehicles we had with us. The fire trucks were still full of water, which was good news. We all spent the next 12 hours watching the fire burn all around us in tall timber to the north and east and west. Luckily, the fire never did burn to our safe zone in any direction. The weird thing was that we couldn't get a backfire to ignite whatsoever due to the heavy draft currents being generated on the ground as the raging fire was sucking up all the air it could grasp from all directions. It was a very strong cooling breeze from the south indeed. Very strange encounter for certain. Needless to say, fortunately, the good Lord was indeed along for the ride that day. No doubt in my mind about that whatsoever. Once the fire had burned out to the dozer, the line that Tom had cut to the southeast side of the fire, he then bladed a trail to connect with the dirt BLM forestry access road that had burned over once the fire had moved further east. Once he completed that task, we were all set free to begin our journey out of the safe zone. The BLM access road ran south and connected to Circle Drive. It was about 2 a.m. on Thursday morning when we finally got out of there. A high-octane adrenaline rush day it was, forever etched in my memory. The reason I bring that up is the county did maintain that road. I can go back and tell you my first ride on on Circle Drive Road was in 1958. And, you know, over the years, witnessed county blades all the way up and down different various areas of Circle Drive maintaining the road. So my intent was to establish that the county has maintained that road going back to my best of my knowledge to 1958. So that was all I had. If there was any questions, I'd be feel free to fire away. And if not, I'll write my name down here and get out of your hair. With that said, I obviously favored the county to move forward to getting the designation made as a county road. Why it slipped through the cracks, I'm guessing it chalks up to another one of statute number 2477, where a lot of roads in this county were established. And it's in your legal advice can give you the background of statute 2477, and it's now revised statute 2477.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Other public comment?
Good morning. I'm Sharon Hazelton Seams. My father homesteaded on Casper Mountain in 1950, just south of Bear Trap Meadow. So my whole life, that's where I've been. I have witnessed Natrona County working on that road, sometimes day and night. I remember going down Complete Circle Drive Road, and I've never seen anybody throwing trash or mud bogging in that area, and I've spent a lot of time. I used to take Neil Forsling down in that area to sketch for her paintings, and my father helped establish the fire department, Hogadon, and sadly he passed away September 6th, 1968. At age 48, and he was very, very supportive, not only for the county, but for the city. And I really think that we need to stand behind the county to make sure that that road remains a county road and continues doing the work that they've done, well done, in my opinion. Thank you. Sharon, S-H-A-R-O-N, Hazelton, H-A-Z-E-L-T-O-N, last name Seams, S like Sam, E-E-M-S. Neil Forsling from Crimson Dawn. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other public comment?
Mr. Chair, John Masterson, I don't know if it's appropriate to correct one thing, if I may.
You may.
The Woodburys acquired this land that we're talking about, that Circle Drive's involved with, in September of 2023. Prior to that, they were landowners in the Bates Creek areas. I'm sorry, I looked and I can't find the exact date when they first acquired that land, but they have been residents of Wyoming and of Natrona County for a long period of time, and ranchers in that area. The land that we're talking about here was indeed acquired by them in September of 23. But to the degree people believe that they have come in from some other place and are trying to dictate to the county, that is not the case. So just, I don't want to, I'm not looking to debate anything else, but I think that's one thing that's clear from the record if you have to go back and search through it. I just wanted to correct it, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Other public comment? Last call for public comment. All right, the public comment period is closed. At this time, we'll move into our public hearing portion for the establishment of County Road 505. And council, do you want to proceed? Or do you?
Well, yes, thank you very much.
I wasn't sure if we were going to turn this portion over to the hearing examiner, or if you were going to do that.
Well, let's let Ryan do a little bit, and then I will make an opening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Heiser. I will take both of those comments as you turning this proceeding over to the hearing examiner for the purposes of establishing a public road pursuant to Wyoming Statute 24-1101. Under that statute, it is the duty of the county commissioners to establish, review, record, and set up roads which are deemed necessary and beneficial to the public use. Under that particular statute, I'm not going to read the entire thing. I'll rely on Mr. Heiser and his testimony and his witnesses to establish the majority of the elements under that statute. But under that statute, the county is afforded the opportunity to essentially claim a public road that has been used for 10 years or more. There are requirements in there being recordings, publications. I have been submitted with both testimony and exhibits that indicate that those initial steps have been taken, have been completed. There have been no objections filed as required by the publication under that statute. And so essentially what we're here for today is what I would call a default hearing, where Mr. Heiser has the burden of proof to show an opera of proof showing that the county has complied with all the requirements of the statute to set up Circle Drive or County Road 505 as a public road under the statute. The commissioners have heard public testimony. I would remind the commissioners that under the statute, in the event there are no objections written or filed, then the commissioners do not hear any objections. So the sole reason for this hearing is to make sure all of the factors, all of the elements of Wyoming Statute 24-1101 have been established by the county. After Mr. Heiser's testimony, this event will then be turned over to the commissioners to create findings of fact and resolutions establishing this public road. Mr. Heiser, do you have anything to add to that commentary?
I will get better at that. I apologize. The only thing I would add to that is I am not going to testify, but I am going to present evidence through certain witnesses. And so that will be the process, is what we're going to do is provide the factual basis to establish that Natrona County has exercised dominion and control over this road, and that they've done so in such a manner for more than 10 years. And I guess, so that's the process, and if we're good, I can go ahead and make more of an opening.
Please, Mr. Heiser. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And good morning, everyone. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hearing Examiner, members of the commission. My name is Bill Heiser. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Brown and Heiser in Laramie. I've been practicing for quite a long time, and I seem to be getting closer to the end of my road. I'm only saying that because I seem to be working a lot in road cases. And so whether I'm close to the end of the road, I guess, is yet to be determined. But what I want to do is, and I guess I should say this, I was contracted by Natrona County relative to this road because I may be the only person who's had a prescriptive road hearing that has been reported. I'm sure there's been more of them, but I was involved in one not long ago that went to the Supreme Court, and so I do have some experience in this area. Particularly, I think it's important to recognize the notion of adverse possession or prescription, and that's something that's a common legal discussion that goes on, and there's a lot of areas where that happens. But the difference for purposes of this to keep in mind is, while the rules are somewhat the same in that it's an open, notorious, and known possession or use of someone else's land, the fact that it is the government, and by the government I mean Natrona County, the government is making use of it. It actually is done in a couple of ways. One is by the public use, and then the other one is by maintenance of that. There's a leading case in this area called Lincoln County Board of Commissioners versus Cook. It's a 2002 case. And that one talks a lot about what the elements are. You know, if you need to have the open or hostile use for a period of 10 years and some things like that. But I'll give you just the important part is that when you're talking about the adverse possession by a governmental entity, that case says the landowner is entitled to a presumption of permissive use unless the public authority can establish that it has assumed supervision or control over the road or has kept it in repair. We're going to be in a position of showing you that both of those things have happened, that Natrona County has assumed control and supervision over the road, and we'll give you a lot of information about that, and that Natrona County has kept the road in repair and has expended quite a bit of funds. The interesting part that I will give you is that while we'll have some sworn testimony, we're limited by the age of the people who are testifying. And so there's a lot of information that is going to be, I think it's fair for you to consider, it's fair for you to evaluate, it's fair for you to look at, but I also think that it's also going to be really clear that for a period of 10 years, which means if we go back from 2024 back to 2014, we're going to have some really solid evidence that Natrona County has exercised control over this road and supervision over this road, and that Natrona County has spent a lot of money maintaining it. However, I think it's important because of the nature of this road and the importance of county roads to go through and present to you the whole picture of what has transpired, of what we've been able to gather relative to Circle Drive or 505, or sometimes it'll just be referred to as the road. And so in that, a couple of things I want to make sure to start with. That is that there are some procedural requirements for doing this under the statute, and that is that there needs to be a plat filed. We have, and we'll offer an exhibit of the plat of a survey that was conducted that shows a centerline survey of the road that was platted. There also needs to be a notice that's sent out to the property owners. And then also a publication of this hearing in a newspaper of circulation in the county. So all of those things have been done. And particularly, I guess I should also step back. One of the things that started this proceeding was your resolution 5624, which was enacted saying that the Natrona County Commissioners would embark on this process of establishing County Road 505 as a county road. And so upon that happening, the survey was commissioned, was conducted. We'll present that as Exhibit 2. You'll see that. We also have publication of the notice, and there's a statutory notice. We've used that exact language from the statutory notice. That'll be Exhibit 3, and then there's an affidavit of mailing where this notice was mailed to 64 interested parties, landowners, and given an opportunity to be here and object. And that's the other thing that's transpired is once that process was put in place and all those notices were sent out or published, that is when the opportunity to object to the establishment of the road by prescription ripened. That occurred on October 2nd. There were no objections. And if there were any objections, the only thing that could come about from those objections would be a challenge to whether or not it was an adversely possessed road, or the actions were hostile, or there was no maintenance, or there was no possession or control. Even though we don't have that as a contested thing, that's something that we certainly want to put before you. There's no question that this started from an action by the Woodburys. We'll have a little bit of discussion about that, but that's really not overly material to what's going on here, other than it does again demonstrate Natrona County's supervision and control over the road. So with that, if there's any questions before we start, I'd be happy to answer those, but I'm anticipating that I would call 4 witnesses. Mike Hagler, who is the Road and Bridge Supervisor for Natrona County, will give you a lot of information relative to the road. I will call Nancy Moody, who is the mapping GIS person for Natrona County. Will give you some good evidence of the road and some aerial photography history of the road. I will call Paul Svensson, who is the surveyor for WIC, who did the center line survey, has also done some other work in the area. And then finally, I will call Kevin Christensen, who's a mountain resident and also works with the BLM. And I guess I should say all of these witnesses will also give you some of their own personal flavor and involvement with the road. So with that, that's what I intend to present, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns that you may have.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Laird.
could you give me the citation to the case you were referencing?
You bet. That is Lincoln County Board of Commissioners versus Cook. It is 39 P. 2nd, 1076. That's a Wyoming 2002 case.
Thank you.
And for purposes of just your edification, Mr. Laird, if you'd like, the case that I referred to that I was involved in is called Boykin versus Carbon County Board of Commissioners.
What was the spelling of the first name?
Boykin is Boykin, and that can be found at 124 P. 3rd, 677, and that's a Wyoming 2005 case.
And that was Boykin versus what?
Boykin versus Carbon County Board of Commissioners.
Thank you.
Okay, and so with that, if any other questions or concerns?
No, Mr. Heiser, thank you.
All right, then we will call Mike Hagler. And Mike, if you want to just, before you sit down, stand right here and you're going to get sworn in.
Mr. Hagler, would you please spell your full name for the court?
Michael P. Hagler, Hagler.
Thank you, sir. And will you please raise your right hand? Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to provide in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God? Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hagler, I hate to do this to you, but it's important in this. Would you state your name for the record and then also give us your date of birth?
Kind of.
How's that? That's better. My name is Michael D. Hagler, 6353.
Mr. Hagler, what's your current occupation?
I'm the Road and Bridge Superintendent and Fire Warden for Natrona County.
And how long have you been in that position? I'm not sure. Oh. Is it working? Yep, we can do-si-do, I think. Yep.
Works.
It always works better if we have some technical issues.
So to answer the question, I've been with the county since 2003.
Okay. When did you first become familiar with Circle Drive?
Well, as a young boy living in Casper, 71 years, I'm familiar with it in that I worked for the Parks Department on weekends and summers, particularly at that time I was hauling garbage and washing outhouses on the mountain and running a fire truck. And I'm familiar with it from my parents. I've hunted on Muddy Mountain using access that's provided by Circle Drive. We've used the road to take trips to the University of Wyoming football games, come home that way, go up and look at scenic changes of the trees, just outings of what nature, picnics and things on the mountain. And, obviously that's, as I was growing up, also had, when I was a deputy sheriff in 1976, I had an accident on the backside of Casper Mountain. It involved a gun. I actually got shot in the leg. And it was just above the Cheney Ranch. I can see it vividly because I couldn't drive. I tried to drive, but I couldn't. I was trying to get down to the highway to get help. But long story short, I was up there for quite a while by myself. I'd been up there looking for two girls that were lost in a snowstorm. And we found them, but I was headed down and I was taking my gun off and it shot me. And so I laid up there from 9:30 to 11 o'clock in the morning till I was evacuated by a helicopter and lived to tell about it.
So let me ask you a few questions then about that. Looking at, when's your first recollection? I know it was as a young kid. Would you say that was when you were 10, 12, that age?
Yeah, about able to hunt. I was able to hunt, so 12 years old, somewhere there.
And at that point in time, did it appear that Circle Drive had been maintained or bladed by the county?
It did, particularly, it was paved. I remember it being paved from Hogan on turnoff, and then it went to a gravel. I call it a gravel. It's natural gravel. It wasn't anything that anybody put on there. It was just the way the road evolved
Sure.
with the terrain and the conditions.
So when did you start with the Natrona County Sheriff's?
In 73.
And at that time, was the Natrona County Sheriff patrolling Circle Drive?
Yes, we were.
And did you have any other responsibilities relative to Circle Drive from the sheriff's office?
Well, we patrolled all county roads.
And at that time, when you were driving on it, did it appear that it was maintained by the county?
Yes.
Okay. Was there ever any indication to you that it was not a county road?
No. Had all the county road signs.
Okay. Well, let's come in specifically then. When did you start in your position with County Road and Bridge?
2003.
And when you started in 2003, what was your position?
Well, I originally started with the county as a county commissioner, and then I applied for the road and bridge superintendent job and took that in the September of 2003. I served about 9 months as a county commissioner, and I've had that job ever since. I was not public works, but parks director at one time too.
Okay. Well, and so this is a little bit difficult because the county commissioners are your boss, but I'm going to ask you to describe to them what your job is as the county road and bridge supervisor.
Well, my job is to see that all the roads are maintained and safe for the public to travel. Obviously, I'm involved with budgeting practices to project road repairs and that type of thing, projects, managed projects. Also involved in making sure the roads are evaluated. We do that under what was originally called the GASB direction, governmental accounting system, directed that we have a program to where our roads were evaluated not only for pavement but for gravel conditions. So that was one of the things we do with all the roads. And I'm also the fire warden. I'm in charge of fires, which we had one last night on Coal Mountain Road, and all the apparatus came down Circle Drive to get to it till midnight. So I do a gamut of things with roads. I drive them probably every week. It's not uncommon we put 200 miles a day on.
Okay. And I'll certainly ask you some more specific questions about that. In order to come back and do something that I skipped over, have you done any looking at any articles or historical newspaper articles or anything relative to the history of Circle Drive?
Yes, I have. Some of those go back into the 20s and 50s.
Well, let me let you take a look at Exhibit 21-1 through Exhibit 21-12.
Okay.
And just, again, I don't want you to read them here, but just give what's a general depiction of what that exhibit is.
Well, it speaks of a number of things. The county commissioners were aware of application of funding for a road project, Circle Drive. There's various newspaper articles that go clear back to many, many different dates that talk specifically about the road going to be extended, worked on, and I think Neil Forsling, one of the articles was about their involvement in that road and what it provided for Casper Mountain and Crimson Dawn area, where that was like a homestead years ago, which you've heard some testimony of that already. That they drew pictures and did some scenery stuff. The woman was an artist at times. There's various articles, some of them are a little tough to read, but basically that's, long ago, the road was talked about, that it was going to be improved, it was going to be built, to some degree was, the articles speak of.
And from those articles, do they reference the Natrona County Commissioners being involved in that process?
Yes, they do. Chamber of Commerce, Natrona County Commissioners, some other groups as well.
If you would also then in your book, let's go ahead and go to Exhibit 4. Can you identify what Exhibit 4 is?
Exhibit 4 is a printout, basically of a road inventory program that we have that keeps track of equipment and materials, labor costs on a daily basis. And this specific part is for Circle Drive.
Okay.
It talks about hauling materials, spreading materials, patching asphalt. I'm just going to read some highlights of it. Plowing snow, fixing cattle guards, the normal things you would do on a county road.
And so a couple of those I specifically want to mention. Obviously, I think everybody knows what paving is, or hauling asphalt. But one of these that's in here a lot is grading and reshaping road and shoulders. What is that?
That's basically what it is we run a grader on the road and pull the ditches, reshape them, cut the grass down, redistribute the material, fill in holes, build up the cattle guards, that type of thing.
And so looking at this, is that something that is something that routinely happens on Circle Drive?
That routinely happens on Circle Drive as well as many other roads.
Well, we're talking specifically about Circle Drive in this instance, and Exhibit 4 relates only to Circle Drive.
It
right?
does.
Okay. And so on that, I see that there's some entries that end in, I think the very first entry at the top is a 8/22 of 24 entry. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And how long does this report go back? How far back does it go?
It goes back to 2014.
And is that when this report, you started keeping this report?
Yes, this is when this program went into effect.
So in this summation, does it include all of then the time records and equipment costs and information that you would have within your office to oversee the employees who performed this work?
Yes.
And do you believe that that's a fair and accurate representation of the costs that have been, the maintenance costs that have been incurred by Natrona County since the beginning of this in 2014?
Yes, I do.
And do you know, can you tell the commission how much they have spent on just the maintenance costs at Circle Drive in and of itself?
Yeah, it's basically $213,000, 760.
And can you confirm that all of that work was actually done on Circle Drive?
Yes, it was.
Let's move now to Exhibit 5. And would you tell the commissioners what Exhibit 5 is?
Exhibit 5 is also a tracking system we had prior to the previous sheet that we were looking at. It was not as reformed, but it still tracked all activities that were done on Circle Drive from 2006 to 2015, overlapped a little bit.
And what's the difference between that and the other, the Exhibit 4 we just looked at?
Well, this isn't as specific. It doesn't show the cost, but it has footnotes to what was done, different items that we actually did on the road, who might have requested it, that type of thing.
Okay. And so on this, you say there's who might have requested it. Are there requests included in this form that are requests by the landowners in the vicinity?
Yes, there are.
And just to make sure, let's just for example, because I don't want to go through all of these, but are there requests, say, to clean a cattle guard made by a adjacent landowner?
Yes, there are, specifically the Cheney Ranch. There's very requests.
And those are interspersed throughout this.
Yes, they are.
And is there any, well, in fact, let me just talk about another specific thing in this. This indicates that there are road closure barricades being installed. Tell me about the road closure barricades being installed.
Well, a little history on that. From the very beginning, when we get snow events, we have to close that road because it's not accessible. So originally, we put up what was called a W4 barricade. It was an orange and white sign barricade, 3-tiered with a road closed sign on it. And it was movable. You could move it around, but and then we basically piled snow up to stop people from going into the lower parts of Circle Drive. And we did that on both ends. And then eventually we phased into having gates, but.
To the best of your knowledge, do you know when that practice of closing Circle Drive by Natrona County, when that practice was started?
I'm sure it went on before I came to work here. I mean, I don't think it was as pronounced as far as barricades and things, but the road pretty much snow shut. But I think it was like 2015 when we actually started doing the barricade.
That's when the gates came up, right?
Well, the gates and the barricades preceded that.
So, yeah, and I think I can find it in here. I believe there's an entry in here in 2007 for installing the road closure barricade.
Yeah, there's a number of entries of moving those barricades.
Yep. And so, again, how is this document formed? I mean, where does it come from to show what the employees were doing?
It basically comes off their time cards and it goes into a worksheet, and then it was entered into this program.
And this document actually starts in 2006.
Yes,
And then, do you know when it ends?
it was 2015, June of 15.
So to summarize, what types of maintenance are done on Circle Drive? What does the county do by maintenance on Circle Drive?
Well, we grade the road, we've gravelled the road, we plow snow on the road, we perform maintenance on signs, cattle guards, some approaches, that type of thing.
How often, what's the schedule? How do you determine when the road is going to be maintained?
Normally, we do it in the spring when the snow's melted enough we can do it. However, we plow snow all year round, all winter long on the paved portion of Circle Drive. But when we close the road, we don't maintain anything past the gates until the snow's out. And that varies on whenever that is. It's seasonal. Sometimes it closes early, sometimes it closes late.
Well, I'm going to talk with you about snow in just a second, but as far as blading, how often annually is the?
Roughly twice a year, if requested, depending on what's going on, particularly like this year, we did a lot because of the construction. But it just depends on if they have loggers moving logs and things off the mountain, they don't come down the face, we get involved more grading on it. It depends on the traffic.
Do you have an estimate as how often the county blades the road?
On an average of twice a year, that'd be the least amount,
So at least twice a year?
at least
maybe.
twice a year.
And what does it cost per average to send the blade out there to blade?
Well, that varies as well, depending on the condition of the road, but I think it's around, I think I had it in here at 4,000. If I can find that, 4,000 some dollars an event, maybe a little more than that too. I don't remember where that is. I had that written down.
I think you say it's $4,702.
Right, that's, yeah.
So it's about $9,400 a year just in blading expense for Circle Drive.
Correct.
Let's flip over to Exhibit 6.
Mr. Heiser, would you bring your microphone just a little closer?
Yes, I'm
You
sorry.
might pull it down a little bit too. Thanks.
What is Exhibit 6?
Exhibit 6 is a compilation of the actual snow plowing that's done by the county on Circle Drive, and this particular report runs from 2019 to 2024. It also encompasses other roads that we plow up there, but it's all congealed into this one report because it's very difficult to track every event in plowing on each segment of a road. So it's all compiled as one, but it's basically done off of time cards again. And so it shows, the plowing events, mostly when they took place. That could be on Circle Drive, that could be on Ogadon, that could be on East End Road up there. Those are the three and Micro Road. But so a portion of this is Circle Drive, and normally when we're plowing, it's closed down the backside of the mountain.
Okay. And just for, again, purposes of letting everybody know, what does the county spend on snow plowing on Casper Mountain?
Well, I believe this ended up being around, was it 627,000, somewhere in that neighborhood.
And that was from the period of when to when?
That's from this 2019 to 2024, basically a 5-year span.
So a little bit more than $100,000 a year is.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the specifics of Circle Drive. And maybe in order to do that, I'm going to ask you to maybe drag the Exhibit 27 over, or 26 over a little bit.
Get in here.
And let's let you just start by kind of giving a bit of a guided tour of what we're talking about when we're talking about Circle Drive or County Road 505. And it's going to be a little bit hard, but hopefully we can help.
So to orient everybody, this is north, this is the junction of Casper Mountain Road, 251. This is Hogadon turnoff. So Circle Drive starts right here, the pavement does. Comes down through here, goes through Bear Trap Meadow, here's East End Road. And comes on down to the development, housing development, whatnot, till you reach the new home that's up there, Mr. Potter's right in this area. And that's where we actually have had the gate originally that closed the mountain road going down the backside, Circle Drive. That fence has been moved down closer to this cattle guard, the new gate. And then there's a cattle guard. You come onto the Woodbury's property here. There's another cattle guard. You leave Woodbury's property. You come down to Muddy Mountain, which is right here. And then, excuse me, right here. I got tracked off there. This is Muddy Mountain Road. So Circle Drive turns pretty much westerly here. Have another cattle guard, some mile marker numbers on there. We have another cattle guard down here. And we have one more cattle guard here. And a cattle guard here. And a cattle guard here before you get to Coal Mountain Road. And we have the new gate down here now. It used to be up here closer to Cheney's, but it got moved down there. So this is the intersection of Coal Mountain Road, and then you go out to Highway 487 down here.
Mr. Hagler, did you take a video of the length and the entire drive of Circle Drive?
I did.
And it's broken down into two parts for purposes of what we're gonna talk about. And I'm not gonna show the video to you because it's pretty long, but you'll have an opportunity, it'll be put into evidence. But the first, which is Exhibit 9A, is the paved part. Is that what you prepared?
Yes.
And then the second part is the gravel or the dirt part?
Yes.
So again, we'll offer Exhibits 9A and 9A or 9-1? 9A and 9B, which will be those videos. But we have some, and so we're going to jump to the pictures now, so 8. But you did also take some photographs.
I did.
I guess what I'd like to do is kind of walk through those photographs, starting with Exhibit 8-1. We'll put those up on the screen, and you can then describe what's in each of those photographs, and then indicate on the map behind you, again, approximately where that is located on the road.
Okay, this is the new gate, which I did point out as being in this vicinity right here, ahead of that cattle guard.
And while you're at it, just while we're doing that, since you know, what's the cost of that gate?
That was about $11,000.
Okay. I'll let you carry on.
Okay. So that's, these are just gonna follow, the slides are just gonna follow these cattle guards down. So that's the second, new cattle guard.
And just to interrupt you here, because I always let you, and then I'm gonna quit. With respect to these cattle guards, all these cattle guards were installed by the county and are routinely cleaned by the county?
Yes. These two we're talking about right now were just installed as part of the new project.
Okay.
But we will be maintaining those.
When you're talking about all of them, I just wanted that to stand with all of them. So
Okay.
go ahead.
So we can move to the next one. Okay. That is actually the second cattle guard, misspoke. And that's the road sign down here at Muddy Mountain as you turn and go westerly. Road sign up there. Next cattle guard right there. And there's also a loading chute there that is off the road right there on the Woodbury property. We have the next cattle guard. The next cattle guard right there. And this one's at the top of the hill here, I think right there. And that sign that you're seeing there is a BLM sign. It's kind of a little bit out of sequence, but it's down in this area right here. And that's this cattle guard. And another county road sign, which is in this vicinity. That's just going the other way, same sign. Another BLM sign that's down in here. Then that moves out to Highway 487, which is off the map here, but it shows the signage directing people to Circle Drive both directions. I believe that was eastbound, and then that's back on top. That's the new gate we've already looked at. Back up here. And then that's the lower gate that's down here at the last cattle guard, right here, before you get to Coal Mountain.
So with respect to that Exhibit 18-7 and that gate, can you talk a little bit about that gate and how the county administers and controls that gate and what the other signs around that area are?
That gate is one that we close once winter hits, and we close the top side of the mountain. The Cheneys actually had a combination of the lock there, so they could go in and out of their ranch. That, like I say, that gate at one time used to be even higher up, but they asked to move it down there. And then when we close that, there's a side gate, you can see there where that red sign is, that allows four-wheelers to go through there to hunt mountain lions and elk. So you don't have vehicular traffic going up in there, but they allow game and fish, everybody worked on that to allow them to have an access point to still continue their hunts once that closes.
Thank you. And Deirdre, could we pull up Exhibit 11? I think if you can talk about this one, maybe from the screen, it might be easier too. And just for purposes of reference again, what's shown on Exhibit 11? Does it include Circle Drive?
It does. That's basically a map of ownership. So it shows BLM properties, which are in the yellow, state properties, which are in the blue. The gray checkerboard is the Woodbury properties, various areas. And then the white is all private property.
And so,
Parklands.
so specifically, I guess, as you're coming out at the beginning of the road, the part that's now paved, from Hogadon to the, we'll say to that first gate, winter closure gate, does it go through a number of private property owners there?
It does, goes through about 60-some.
Okay. And so that's why we have so many people that we've notified in this case, is that first segment goes through several subdivisions.
A lot of home sites.
Perfect. All right. And you can probably have a seat now.
Get rid of this so they can see.
Let's go to Exhibit 7. And can you describe to the commissioners really what Exhibit 7 is and what this IMS is and what the county's relationship with IMS is?
IMS is a company that we hired, infrastructure management. We've used those for a number of years to evaluate our road systems. They're again directed off of Gatsby. We had the potential of evaluating our roads and depreciating them, or doing this process and having them evaluated for soundness, rideability, dust, various combination of things they test for. It includes our paved roads and our gravel roads. But as of lately, YDOT and T-Squared, University of Wyoming, has taken over the analyzation of the paved sections. So IMS now just performs the gravel road. And in this case, they had performed a pavement management report on Circle Drive and indicated various conditions on the road.
And for this specific exhibit, this was for the paved portions of it. Is that right?
It was. This was the asphalt portion.
But now you're actually having them do the gravel part.
That's correct.
But no longer doing the paved part.
Correct.
And then I'm going to reference you over to Exhibit 10. which I think actually, it doesn't necessarily go with Exhibit 7, but it's the same type of thing. So if you tell the commissioners what Exhibit 10 is.
So Exhibit 10 is a mapping that IMS provides, and it's somewhat confusing, but the red portion at the top, at the north end, is the beginning of Circle Drive, where they evaluated some of the pavement. And then it proceeds on down and turns colors, and those colors relate to the condition of the road as evaluated, and they go all the way down Circle Drive to the intersection of 487. It also shows that they did other roads as well, but we're speaking specifically of Circle Drive.
So, and this assessment, you got this report where their assessment was done in what year?
This was done in 22.
Okay.
So,
And IMS is a separate contractor that Natrona County contracts with to review all of their roads.
correct.
If I could get you to turn to Exhibit 20. Let me just ask, what is this letter and what does this letter mean? What's the historical significance of this letter?
Well, this letter's from the State Highway Commission to the Board of County Commissioners, and it's speaking of an FSA Route 1301, and it advised that the Federal Highway Administration approved the extension of the above reference route in junction with Casper Mountain Medicine Bow, effective April 16th, 1971. That was a program that was available back in that year, it was 1971, to potentially acquire funding to build roads and extend roads. It was a program. This was in the file, the county road and record file.
So this was in your files?
Yes.
It was before you became the road
Yes.
supervisor. But it is a letter from the State Highway Commission?
Yes.
And what does the letter inform the county commissioners in 1971?
That they had approved the extension of the reference route, which there's also a map that goes with
Okay.
that.
And so that route basically says that for purposes of the federal government, this Route 1301 is approved for the use of, application and use of federal funding.
Yes.
And does that also, would that typically include a county or state match to get that federal funding?
It could. Yes, it could.
And then, so the map that goes with that, I guess, my question is as for purposes of what was going on in 1971 in the application by the county commissioners, was Circle Drive included in the Route 1301 that would be available for federal funding?
Yes, it was.
And that's indicated in that map.
Yes.
That's 20-3. And let me just, for purposes of making sure we're clear, what does the page 20-2 show you, the page before that?
That was a record of proceedings of a county commission meeting.
And that's just the part showing that the application was approved and got 1301 was designated as 1301?
Yes. And it talked about 13 and a half miles of road.
If I could get you to turn to Exhibit 23. Now, Exhibit 23, can you just, this is a number of interactions between the county and various members of the public. And so I guess I'd like you to explain what Exhibit 23 entails it starts with an index of various licenses that are appended to that. So if you tell the commissioners what it is that this information shows.
Well, it's a listing of all the licenses that were issued by the county for Circle Drive, various types, power lines, telephone lines, a special winter haul route for, I think it was for a logging truck company to operate longer during the year, during the winter. A lot of these are electrical type applications for power line easements. And there was a water line crossing. I believe that was one for the lodge. Buried cables, driveway, number of driveway approach type things. And I think that's pretty much it.
So these license applications, the first one is in, first several are in the early 80s, and then they go forward. And so people were applying to the county for permission to use the right-of-way or go under or actually use Circle Drive. Is that what these are for?
Correct.
And then the Natrona County then granted these licenses.
Correct. They were granted by the county commission.
And so the county commissioners granted easements, just say to PP&L, to run electrical lines in the Circle Drive right-of-way.
Correct.
One of the issues that has to be determined is whether the county has made use of the entire width of the county road right-of-way, which would be 66 feet. Can you tell the commissioners what Road and Bridge does with that full 66 feet and why it's appropriate to have a full 66-foot wide easement for this road?
Well, roadways in general need right-of-way, and their purpose is to allow utilities to be put in them. It's also a good mechanism for snow removal, a place to put the snow. It obviously plays into drainage, and it plays into a safe zone for vehicles. They call it runoff area. So, I mean, if two vehicles are going to have an accident and they can avoid each other, they have a borrow pit to go to, that type of thing. If you break down, you have an area to get off the road. So, that's the purpose of them, is mostly for right-of-way grants to utilities in the future.
And then a couple other specific things in this area. One would be, do you need that area in order for equipment to turn around in this type of area?
That's true too.
Okay.
It's a turnaround for the grader when he's out there having access to turn around.
And then one of the other things that you talked about was the ability to use it as a fire break.
That's true too. It's a dead zone. We call it a dead zone in fire. If it's maintained properly, it's a good fire break.
And as far as when they're shaping and doing the shoulders and that type of work, does that require them to be off of the road sometimes and to turn around and do different things when they're doing it?
It does, and sometimes they have to yield to traffic in order to get traffic by. Gives them a place to go.
To your knowledge, did Natrona County ever ask or seek the permission of any of the landowners to put the roads in?
To my knowledge, no.
You just did it? Okay.
Yeah.
And to your knowledge, has there been any objection by anyone other than when Woodbury interposed their objection?
No, sir.
No other landowner ever complained?
Not to my knowledge.
And other landowners seem to appreciate it, such as Cheney and others? They liked having the road?
Yes.
And the maintenance provided by the county?
Yes.
When is it that you learned that the Woodburys had an objection to the use of the roads?
It was in, I believe it was July of this year.
Did the county receive a letter?
We received a letter, and I was asked to meet with them up there on their property.
If you look at Exhibit 25.
Yes, I'm
Is
familiar
the-
with that
Is
letter.
that the letter that you received from
Yes.
the Woodburys? As long as you've been alive, has the road been open to public use?
As far as I can remember.
Do you know, other than the winter closures done by the county, do you know of any other time that it was closed?
It might have been closed for a fire event,
Okay, sure.
that type of thing. But other than that, it was very congested during the eclipse that we had here. A lot of traffic used that road and it was bumper to bumper, believe it or not, for people trying to get off the mountain.
So can you tell the commissioners about the use of the road and what the public does relative to using that road and what purposes it serves?
Well, it serves as a main connector to Highway 487. A lot of people use it as a shortcut to, particularly if you live on the mountain, to access Highway 487 quicker than coming down the face and driving all the way around. It's also used for basically all heavy materials that have to come up on top of Casper Mountain, such as concrete, building materials, that type of thing, gravel. Most contractors haul up the backside, up Circle Drive, so they don't have to negotiate the steep curves on the face of the mountain and then come down, particularly and the heavy loads don't come down the front, they all go down the back, but on Circle Drive.
Okay. So it's used by cars.
Cars, it's used by pickups, it's used by hikers, bikers, horseback. There's even been a couple bike events held on that road years ago, as well as recently, and pretty much it's used for everything. I
Okay.
mean,
And what are people doing when they're using that road? What type of activities are they?
well, a lot of them are just traveling through to get to 487 or using it as a scenic byway type thing, just to go up and enjoy the Mother Nature. It's an access to Muddy Mountain Campground, which is got a lot of use. People come from both directions to get to that campground. A lot of people come from Rollins, Laramie, destination. They use Circle Drive to go up there because it's not as steep to pull their trailers and things up to that campground coming that way. And they don't have to come all the way into Casper. So it's got a varied use and it's used heavily. But it is definitely an evacuation route as well for Casper Mountain in any major event. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to even be fire. It could be tornadoes or flooding. We've had flooding up there as well and used that as an evacuation route.
Is it used to access the public ground for hunting?
Used for hunting. There's elk and deer and mountain lion permits up in there.
Did there come a time when the Woodburys actually blocked the road?
Yes.
And when you learned that they blocked the road, what was the response that the county had to that blockage?
We didn't approve of it, and we actually went and removed the blockage.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, it is 10:30. We've been at it a little bit. I'm wondering if maybe a 5-minute break to use the restroom and for me to confirm that I've got everything I need to ask Mr. Hagler taken care of would be great.
I have no problem with that. Thank you, Mr. Heiser.
I think so. Covered.
Let me view my stuff here. Just want to make sure we've got everything we need to have here. We didn't skip anything. Hey, John.
Hey,
Hey.
I wasn't hating you, I was hating her.
Oh, okay. You can hey her. You should hey her. I'm just looking to make sure I got everything anyway.
You had mentioned the Woodburys
I wasn't gonna hang around unless you need to bring them up.
Nope,
Bring
I don't
them
think,
in.
I don't think I have anything else. We're just making reference to what started this in the reference and the resolution. That's all.
That's fine. Okay. I didn't know if
I think we're done with that.
well, they're
with what?
certainly done with you.
Well, they should be done with me.
I do appreciate you meeting.
Well, yeah, no worries.
That's always been very helpful.
Well,
If you need anything, let me know.
I think we got it. I think we got this part done, and then when we get a little bit further, we'll see what the commissioners want to inquire of me, or they can talk with Heather about the things you requested, see what they do. So,
Anything.
okay.
Following. They really don't hate the county.
Well, that's good.
They're just really frustrated, and they don't understand what we're doing. But anyway, a question for you. I've had a building permit since September of
Our planning commission?
yeah.
Okay. Not
Planning-
approved?
Planning, yeah.
Or our
it's
department, building, okay.
Planning department, thank you.
Okay.
And it's like stalled.
Okay.
I don't want to think that you like called them up and said, hey, he's a jerk,
No,
don't act on it.
I did
They-
not. I don't
they
think,
have a problem.
well, they just appointed a new building official, so I can ask where it is in the process, but we certainly can't say. Let's slow down John's permit.
No, I know, but, I just wanted to see
Okay,
if something was going on.
I can
It
certainly
was
check for you.
natural, or if you would, it might be under my wife's name, Sue,
Okay,
and it's Copper Leaf Builders.
I can ask.
Well, there's one thing, there's a reason I needed to do this. That's it right there. One piece of important evidence I need to get in there.
What else do you need us to do for you here? Anything?
I'm sorry, for what?
What else should we be doing for you here?
I don't think so, anything. I think we'll do this, and then I'm going to get, everybody else up, who's going to talk about the aerial photographs, which is a historical thing, and we're gonna make our name.
I think so. Very good.
'Cause this went well, I think.
I think so. Did you do that?
Which one?
So what I've done, if you ask me questions, I answer. There's a lot of stuff I've put inside because I don't want to discourage you or scare you down. Yeah. They come back to it. Doctors are pretty good at it. He does ask some questions. He does. It's like, He's, as far as we know, at least 20 worldwide. A lot of people love it. He's still the commander of the people. We just went last night to a meeting, city council work session. Or something like that. So he went through.
Well, that's the one that is at Second Street. Oh, no. Yeah. Yeah. What where American Legion did the combat cross? On the phone yesterday. Yeah, like a lot of veterans came to work session. So now they've kind of tabled it and they're gonna have meetings with the people. And she said, you know, they can understand better now that I'm not wrong. I'm just like that too. Master, I'll tell them, take it down and get a new one. They're just respecting this one. And then we have some other people that don't have a budget and monument, because I was on the committee for that. And I don't know that, I'm just married. Is that when you guys did it? I knew you did, but I couldn't remember when that was. From Hazelton Place, that's still the same back here. Here's the equipment. We don't know both sides of that. Person will not carry us a little. And I thought that would flip us one in three. We weren't in the subdivision.
So I don't know if it'd be worth me asking or not.
Mr. Chairman, if you have all of the board members back in the room, I believe our 5-minute break has elapsed and we are ready to get started again.
We're ready to go. Thank you. Commissioners, let's come on back to our seats. Commissioners, here, commissioners. Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Mr. Heiser, I'll turn it back over to you to commence questioning Mr. Hagler.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the little break. And I'm just about done with Mr. Hagler, but there is one area I wanted to talk about. So can you tell the commissioners what it would take if we were working at a position where there was no Circle Drive road, what it would take to construct the road?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Heiser, I just can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll try to lean a little bit closer, sorry. So my question is, can you tell the commissioners, if the road didn't exist, what would it take to construct the road and put it into place now?
Well, basically, we would, it'd be about, my estimate was about 20 million. You'd have to grub off the road, obviously, and create the borrow pits, and there'd be surveys. What that number doesn't include is any environmental studies, like NEPA, or that type of thing. But just basically put a road in with gravel and paving, about 20 million.
And so that's what it would be if you started today, but the road is there and it exists. Is it fair to say that the equivalent of that had been paid by Natrona County to establish that road over whatever time, maybe commencing in the late 20s?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay. Is there any evidence that anybody other than Natrona County invested any funds in Circle Drive?
Recently, we had a flap grant, so.
And so talk about that. Let's talk about that.
I applied for a grant to get federal funding to put the road up there you see today, the paving and the new signing and whatnot. And we matched that with a percentage, as well as the Bureau of Reclamation, which they did Muddy Mountain at the same time. And so their grant offset our grant. That project in its entirety was in the neighborhood of 15 million to complete both those projects.
Okay. So that was some other governmental funding. It
Yes.
wasn't any private source.
No,
Did any landowner ever contribute to the purchase or the maintenance of the property? Or the
not that I'm
construction the
aware
road?
of.
Okay. And then because you mentioned that, there was a time, I want to believe in 2019, where there was some additional gravel put on it, and talk about that process of acquiring that gravel and graveling Circle Drive in 2019.
Well, we had a project on Bates Creek where we crushed gravel, and we had an excess of material, so we crushed enough to later on haul that. The county was going to haul that material on site to the Circle Drive Road, which we did. So we gravelled it from 487 almost up past the turnoff to the Muddy Mountain Road before we ran out of gravel.
Okay.
So we lacked about a mile of completing the road.
And what was the value of that gravel that Natrona County put on the road?
Where have I got that? Oh, it's about 220,000.
No,
believe
I
this
think
is
you're
it.
getting confused here.
Oh, okay.
Look at 21 for the gravel. Not exhibit 21, paragraph 21 of what you're looking at.
Oh.
Sorry.
Another number. So we hauled about 10,000 tons up there at a cost 220,000.
Okay. And then your discussion before, that was the total of the work that was done under Exhibit 4. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And I have no other questions. I don't know if the hearing examiner or any of the commissioners have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Heiser. We will turn it over to questioning from the Board of County Commissioners. If the Board of County Commissioners has any questions for Mr. Hagler, I believe now is the time to address those. Mr. Hagler, I would remind you while you're answering the board's questions, if any, you continue to be under oath.
But I will object if they're outside the scope, just to protect the witness.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, Mr. Hagler, when you mentioned a estimated cost of $20 million to construct Circle Drive, do you recall that a few minutes ago? Does that include cost of right-of-way acquisition? So, for example, if you had to acquire right-of-way across state land or private landowners, there would ordinarily be a cost associated with that? Okay. And did your estimate include topography and, things that go into whether a road can even be built? You don't, ravines and,
I didn't put any survey costs in there.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hagler, just a rough estimate, do you know approximately what percentage of Circle Drive is private surface versus public service?
I don't know the percentage. It's a greater percentage of what's public than what's private, but I don't know the exact percentage.
Okay, thank you.
And Deidre, can we throw up a map 11? And again, I think this is the best we can do, would be the area that is in white is deeded, I should say white and gray are deeded. Blue is state, yellow is BLM. And I guess I'm just trying to sit here and kind of do it in my head. I think between the BLM and the state, clearly it crosses more of them than it does private, but there's a lot of private parties as you're coming from the Hogadon turnoff. You cross 60 some landowners, or approximately 60 landowners.
All right, thank you. I just, looking at the backside of it, coming off the backside of Casper Mountain, I just wanted to make sure that we had it on the record that, I know that map's in the record, but there's very little of it that actually crosses private or deeded land coming off the backside of Casper Mountain.
Once you get to the four-way, I think there's only, there's the Woodbury's and then there's maybe another deeded area down in the lower left-hand part of that map.
Right.
But only two property owners.
Any additional questions from the board? Mr. Heiser, any follow-up on those questions?
Nothing further.
Mr. Heiser, I do show that we've reviewed approximately 13 exhibits with Mr. Hagler. I believe some of those exhibits predate Mr. Hagler's current employment or functions with Natrona County. Just so that we do have good admissible exhibits in this particular matter, I think that we've kind of bounced around it but never hit on it directly. Would you please elicit some testimony from Mr. Hagler that these records are kept by Natrona County in their normal course?
Certainly I can, and I thought that we'd ask that you found those out of your records. Particularly of importance are the licenses and the federal statement where it was designated an FAS road. Those were in your records.
Correct. Those are all in the county road file for 505.
And then in addition to that, the spreadsheets that we have 4, 5, and 6, those were all spreadsheets that were prepared by your office from the information within your office.
Correct.
And I think for the purposes of the photographs and the videos, those were all personally taken by you.
Correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. Heiser.
Thank you for watching out for me.
Sure.
All right, I think we're done with that. And so we would actually call Nancy Moody.
Thank you, Ms. Moody. Will you please introduce yourself to the court reporter and spell your name?
Yes, my name is Nancy L. Griffith Moody, NANCYLGRIFFITH, MOODY.
Thank you, Ms. Moody. And will you please raise your right hand? And do you hereby swear, under penalty of perjury, the testimony you're about to provide in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Moody. Thank you for doing this. And you indicated to me that you're a little nervous about doing this. So again, if there's any problem or if there's any concern with any question I ask, please feel free to ask me to clarify it. We'll make sure that we can get that addressed.
Thank you.
Fair?
Yes.
Okay. Would you give the court a little, give the commissioners a little bit of your history, when you came to Wyoming, what brought you to Wyoming, that type of thing?
I moved to Wyoming in 2003, and we moved here for work, and my husband was first employed in the Casper area.
Okay, so you came to Wyoming 23, and we won't have to talk about where you came from because, we have that. But in any event, when you came to Wyoming, what was it that you were looking for in coming to Wyoming?
We enjoy the outdoors, and so Casper and Natrona County offer a good opportunity to enjoy the outdoors. And Casper itself offers a lot of opportunities to enjoy events inside the city.
Okay, and so specifically tell the commissioners about when you first experienced Circle Drive.
After we had moved here, it was in late spring, early summer of 2003, and just driving around the county, getting to know the county, and going up Casper Mountain Circle Drive, and it was a signed county road and well-maintained, going up to Muddy Mountain and then also going out to 487.
And so you always assumed that it was a county road until this fund started?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and tell the commissioners what it is that you do for the county and what your job is.
I have worked for Natrona County since 2003. I am currently the GIS analyst. I started in 2003 as a GIS technician.
And what is a GIS analyst? First of all, maybe what is GIS, and then what do you do with that?
GIS is Geographic Information Systems. We take tabular data and spatial data, tie those together for mapping so that you have information on the location and you have the tabular information about, like say cattle guards. Where does that exist? What's the condition? What's the material type?
Okay, so we have the Exhibit 11 up. And so is this a map that you prepared?
Yes, this is.
And so maybe you can kind of instruct all of us and teach us a little bit about what it is that you do by explaining how you put this map together and what it shows and what the GIS spatial relation does relative to, again, we'll just start with this map and then we can talk about other things in a little bit.
This is a map showing the public land survey system, the township range and sections. It shows land ownership. It's showing private. It's showing public lands, the Bureau of Land Management, State of Wyoming owned lands, the roadways, county parks. It's also showing with labeling the locations of the campgrounds on Muddy Mountain. And it also shows snow routes.
Okay, so let's start with, this is a map then that you got from the U.S. Geological Survey, a USGS map, and so that's the...
This is a map created with county data.
Okay, so it's, but you take that from the USGS, the county data.
So no, the county data is maintained by the assessor's department for land ownership. And then the roads, that is maintained by our planning department and our road and bridge department and our parks.
Okay.
So This is more of a county maintained
Okay.
data.
And so this was actually then prepared by your office from scratch then?
Yes.
Okay. Which is a little bit different than some of the stuff we'll talk about in a minute, but this one starts from scratch. Okay.
Yes.
And with respect to the road, did you involve then the survey that was actually performed for Circle Drive for this case?
Yes, this does show the resolution 623, which is a survey of Circle Drive.
Okay. And so what you did is took the survey that's been admitted as Exhibit 2 and put that into, I assume, a computer?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
I was gonna say maybe a free Android in there, but put it into a computer, and that's what developed and laid in Circle Drive on this map.
yes,
And so this map actually depicts where the road as surveyed actually lies and what property it crosses.
yes,
Okay. And then specifically, it has those grade areas, and that is the Woodbury property.
yes.
And I just wanted to make sure we pointed that out because it comes up in a little bit in the other exhibits. Perfect. Okay. Let's then turn to Exhibit 22. And can you tell the commissioners about what this picture is, what it is, and how you worked with this and what this represents?
This is an aerial photo frame. This was sourced from the United States Geological Survey, the USGS. They have a repository of imagery. You can research historical imagery. You can find more recent imagery, but this was used to display that from 1976, there is record of the road.
And so let me just say it this way. In your business and what you do, is this something that you would normally reference as these old historical aerial photographs to depict where a road or some other feature might be located?
From time to time.
And so did you find these photographs, these aerial photographs?
Yes.
And does this aerial photograph that's 22-1, does it depict at least a portion of Circle Drive or 505?
Yes.
And can you just describe in the photograph what that part is so that everybody's tracking with you?
Yes. So towards the upper center, you can see, if you go up a little further, yes, you can see Struby Loop up there, right there, Deidre, yes. You can see Struby Loop. If you follow down, this actually goes the full length from the Hogadon turnoff, going across the mountain, down the backside towards Muddy Mountain. And then it also shows that intersection for Muddy Mountain, but continuing westward
So then you
for the backside.
go here, there you go. And then specifically then turning to Exhibit 22-2, what is that and what's different about that than the previous photograph?
This is a continuation. This is a separate photo frame, but it picks up at the intersection with Muddy Mountain and continues that westward path of Circle Drive.
And then for 22-3?
22-3 is continuing. It overlaps with the previous photo, but continues westward and shows the southwest descent towards Coal Mountain and 487.
And so between those three frames, well, no, maybe not. Between those three frames, does it encompass the entire length of Circle Drive?
If you
Or do we
count-
need to get to the fourth one?
The fourth one ensures that it encompasses the entire roadway.
And each of these photographs is a separate photograph,
Yes,
but taken basically at the same time.
yes,
And you were able to get these from the USGS
Yes.
Historical Archives. Okay. And could I get you to look at Exhibit 27-1? I guess just for clarification, again, I know you said it, but all those previous exhibits were taken in 1976.
yes.
Correct. Okay. Let's move then to 27-1. And can you again go through and explain to the commissioners what this is?
This is aerial imagery from 2004. This was flown by Sanborn for the state of Wyoming and Natrona County. This shows the majority of the roadway for Circle Drive. The more of the south portion, we do miss the beginning by,
It doesn't have the connection to Hogadon. We're
does-
missing that first little bit. Is that
yes,
right? Okay. Again, same type of source where you got this photograph?
this came from a separate imagery source. This was a project through the state of Wyoming with a company called Sanborn.
But they also provide aerial imagery that you
Yes.
would rely on.
Yes,
Okay. And let's go to 27-2. This is a blow-up of that previous photograph,
yes.
is that right? And so when it gets blown up, why did we blow up this portion?
We blew up this portion to show segments of the roadway. This portion does cover parts of the Woodbury property, but also BLM and state property.
But it's really a blow-up of the portion at the Woodbury is the Woodbury deeded ground, but it also has some other land in it.
Yes,
And so does that show what the road looked like from an aerial photograph in 2022
in 2004.
or 2000, was it 2004?
Yes,
Yes, 2004. So that's what the road surface would have looked like in 2004.
yes.
Okay. Exhibit 27-3, can you tell us what that is?
This shows a segment more to the southwest of the roadway. And this is also property adjacent with Woodbury, but BLM and state as well.
Make Deirdre go back and forth, but if you looked at the map that's Exhibit 11, you could be able to look at the whole road and then you'd be able to see the gray portions on that map, and then that would correlate to these photographs.
Yes.
And then let's discuss Exhibit 27-4.
This shows Casper Mountain coming down to the intersection with Muddy Mountain.
Okay, to the four-way there that was
Yes.
referred to as sometimes. And again, this is a blow-up in order to show the condition of those roads.
Yes.
And then 27-5.
27-5 shows the roadway, with the township range and section lines for reference.
So in fairness, you took the photograph that was 27-1, and then you, with your GIS skills, interposed the mapping on there to show where the section and township lines are.
Yes,
Do you believe that all these photographs and all these images you've testified are a fair and accurate representation of the condition of Circle Drive at the time the photographs were taken?
Yes.
I have no other questions.
Does the Board of County Commissioners have any questions for Ms. Moody? Thank you.
You did great. I'd call Paul Svensson.
Well, Mr. Benson, would you please introduce yourself to the court reporter and spell your name?
Paul R. Svensson, Casper. Spelling is PAULRSBENSO.
Thank you, Mr. Svensson. And would you please raise your right hand? And do you hereby swear and affirm under penalty of perjury, the testimony you're about to provide in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Svensson. Let's start with a little bit of your background. Can you tell the commissioners about your Wyoming background and your history?
Well, I moved here in 1982. I was either coming here or going to Alaska, and I only had enough money to come here. So I worked for the highway department, and we were surveying and constructing 487 back in the day. And we actually used to cut across the mountain quite a bit on that road instead of driving around with the old yellow subs, is what we called them. But that was kind of how I started out here, and my first experience with Circle Drive was with my survey crew, driving back and forth on that. So.
And so were you a surveyor then when you were working for the highway department?
Yeah, I have associates in applied science and civil from Michigan Tech University, and I wasn't a licensed surveyor then, but I had survey training, and that's what I was doing with the highway department at that time.
And
construction.
when did you become a licensed surveyor?
2004.
Okay. So let me go back to the time that you were working with the highway department in driving Circle Drive. What was the condition of the road at that point? And
I would say it's pretty much like it is now, maybe a little rougher, but I mean, it was never really gravelled. It's just that the material makes it appear gravelled. It does get muddy, if I recall, when it gets wet at times. But it was built. I mean, there's borrow ditches and, cattle guards, if I recall. Signs, if I recall. But
what is your current occupation?
I'm a professional land surveyor with WLC here in town.
And how long have you worked with WLC?
33 and a half years, about.
As a professional land surveyor, what are the type of functions that you undertake in addition to just surveying stuff?
Well, we measure. Most of the surveying I am was with ownership and boundaries. The map. Well, we'll talk about these other
we'll get there in
maps
just a second.
later.
Not a problem.
But
It won't take very long.
yeah, the science of measuring, determining the boundary lines is a big part of it here. I mean, there's other aspects of surveying, in mapping, aerial photography, the topographic surveys, but topographic surveys. But boundary, I think, would probably be the.
So in short, are you professionally trained and professionally engaged to determine the location of things?
Yes, yeah.
And so let's talk specifically then about the first one's Exhibit 3. If you can just turn to Exhibit 3 in there. Okay. Oh, excuse me, Exhibit 2. 3. Exhibit 2, you're right. You turned to the right one. I thought you had
Yeah,
the right
well,
one.
the
You
3
knew what
was
I
on the
wanted.
back
Yeah.
side, so.
So Exhibit 2. What is Exhibit 2?
That's a survey we had done, WLC, in 2018 of the county road, Circle Drive.
Okay, down in the lower right-hand margin of that, Deirdre. There you go. Is this a recorded copy of the survey that you performed?
Yes,
Recorded
yes,
with
and
the.
that's my
it's on
signature.
Your signature up
and
there,
my
your stamp.
Stamp, yes.
And then that's been recorded with the county clerk as document one, well, there it went away, 1159088.
Yes.
Okay. And what was the date that was recorded, if you can see that?
8/20/2024.
Okay. What is this a survey of? What does this locate?
This is the center line of Circle Drive Road as surveyed on this date. Well, the year of 2018 is when we performed these field surveys.
When it was out in the field was
Yeah.
2018, but this
Yeah.
actually was compiled and put together later with your stamp.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And just briefly, what goes into compiling a center line survey?
Well, this procedure was used with GPS survey equipment, global positioning satellites. We have a special subscription to be able to be a real-time kinematic survey without a base. We subscribe to additional satellites to get the precise measurements. And we drive the road, collect the data. It's giving to drafting, and they straighten out the roads a little bit and put some curves in there and then describe that said center line. So.
Okay. And this is a survey that you were engaged to do and were paid
Yes.
for to perform as a professional service.
Yes.
And do you believe it's a fair and accurate survey of the center line of Circle Drive?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to Exhibit 11. And you heard Miss Moody's testimony about this document again and pulled together. Do you believe that the road depicted on that is the same road that you have the center line survey of?
Yes.
And actually, do you know that, and how did you figure that out?
Well, we provided her the DWG file with the 83, 86 datum that she was using to in her program, so it fits, it goes right in to that program.
Okay. And specifically, and maybe it's easier with respect to the gray areas on it, does it appear that that's when the road crosses the Woodbury property?
Yes, yeah, we had done other exhibits for those.
Okay, perfect. Let's go to Exhibit 12 now. And this is where we're going to get a little bit of a history lesson. What is Exhibit 12?
Okay, this is a general land office, a GLO, dependent resurvey of Township 32 North, Range 79 West, of the 6th principal meridian, Natrona County, Wyoming.
Well, and it seems like that was easy, but there's a lot packed in there. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay, going back to the start,
Okay.
the land ordinance of 1785, development and disposition of the public lands of the territory, that developed the PLSS, which is the Public Land Survey System, of how they determined how to survey these 30 states is essentially the number that got surveyed and under this procedure. The original survey for Township 32 North, Range 79 West was performed in 1884. And then in 1922, they came back in and did a resurvey depicting this map.
Okay. And in that survey by the GLO, which is basically this is basically the BLM, is that fair to say?
Well, it was
Or-
the General Land Office shortly after the Land Ordinance of 1785, and then it went to BLM in like the early to mid 40s, 1940s.
And so the original purpose of that was to get the township and range and sections depicted for the various states so that people would understand where their lands might be for homesteading, that type of thing.
Yeah, patents and homesteading.
Okay. And so that's what this is done. And then there was a resurvey in 1922. What would that resurvey have been looking at and doing based on your history as a surveyor?
Well, a lot of them in this township and range was all the mining claims up on the mountain. There's a lot of people that were staking claims of these, and the government was giving patents on those lands to the private owners. In these cases, as they survey these sections, they run the lines and then they record some topo calls, is what they call them. Like if they cross a road, if they descend a hill or ascend a hill, and they do a little bit of mapping on here for some topography. That's a little crude. It all depends on the crew, the survey crew, on their due diligence on how they map it, and record these calls. Here they show the road. They show some roads in here as they cross.
But that would be different than what you did when you went and did your centerline survey.
Yeah,
When you
oh,
went all
yeah.
the way down the road.
Oh, yeah.
They just kind of say, okay, we're worried about the township and range in this section, and oh, by the way, over there's a road.
Yeah,
And we
yeah,
don't necessarily figure out where it is, we just kind of indicate it on there.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so then in 1922, as the GLO survey, did they indicate that there were roads where Circle Drive is?
It shows it down here in section 31, 32, and 33 at the lower left. That last three sections, yeah, right there, 31, 32, and 33. And then up on 28, directly north, it shows it pretty darn close to what it is today. It's not labeled as, Circle Drive Road. I think
Sure.
the field notes called it a ranch road.
Okay.
But that was 1922.
All right, can we switch over to exhibit, what was the next one? 13. And hopefully we can do this a little quicker on this one.
Yeah,
Explain what
yep,
this
okay,
is and
this
what
is-
this is.
A dependent resurvey of 32 north, range 80 west, this township just to the west of the last one. The original for this was 1884. This one is 1968 was the field work. And they have it labeled in the lower right corner in section 36 as Circle Drive Road.
So not only does the road exist, it even has a name by it.
Yeah, they're calling it a name.
Okay, and then let's go on over to exhibit 14.
And this is the township directly south of the previous one. The original was 1884. This is a dependent resurvey performed pretty much the same year, 1968. And in the upper right corner, section 2 is where it comes in from the previous. It's labeled a Circle Drive Road, and it goes on down through section 10, and it ties into Coal Mountain Road, or it calls it Casper Medicine Bow Highway here, but it ties in, and you can see 487, the highway down below as well. It ties in the northeast of section 16.
And so again, just to summarize, the GLO map, they weren't intending to survey the roads, but if they recognized the road was there, that was, then had a name, they indicated it on their map in the general location.
Yes.
Okay. And both of these indicate a circle drive back in 1968.
Yeah, these are a little more accurate. I think they probably mixed in some aerial photos or information on these maps in that date versus the other ones from 1922 with strictly topo calls in their field notes in the book.
Okay, let's turn over to exhibits, let's go to 15, and we can explain what these are.
Okay, this is the USGS quad sheet.
And what is a USGS quad sheet? Explain what that is.
7.5 minute series topographic maps produced by the United States Geological Survey. This particular one is Crimson Dawn, and it was produced in 1960. This is generated mainly from aerial photography. There is field crews on the ground to help perpetuate the information from the photos. It is depicting Circle Drive Road as we pretty much see it today.
And it's actually named Circle Drive.
It's named Circle Drive Road, yep.
Okay.
They show drainages, and I mean, this information gets transferred to many different maps, different various maps.
So, but this map, and the way the USGS works on this, is they do a lot more with the aerial imagery, much like Ms. Moody had talked about, rather than going out and doing survey.
Yeah, to generate the topos, there's aerial mapping with the photos, and then the technology at the time was using the stereographic system to.
And on that map in 1960, from the aerial photographs, it produced a location of Circle Drive, which you indicates basically the same as it is today.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. And then let's turn to Exhibit 16.
Another USGS quadrangle, 7.5 minute series. Freeland, Wyoming. This is 1960. And it goes down to Highway 487 and Coal Mountain Road. And it is depicting Circle Drive Road as a named road.
And in the same location as it exists today?
Yes.
All right. Historically, as a surveyor, have you worked with Circle Drive Road in other projects?
Yeah. There's
And there's some in here we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So go ahead and turn to Exhibit 17. And what would, and before we talk about this specific exhibit, what do you do, or what would you have done as a surveyor with respect to encountering Circle Drive?
Well, we have records of Circle Drive. I mean, the roads on the ground. We have other in-house records of the location of it. This particular.
Yeah, so let's talk about Exhibit 17, just so we can kind of see what we're doing.
Yeah.
So what is Exhibit 17?
This is a major subdivision we did for the county.
And for purposes, I don't know whether these county commissioners have dealt with subdivision plats and those type of things, but the approval of a subdivision plat ultimately lays with the county commissioners, right?
Yes, for a major subdivision.
Okay. And so you're putting together information that's going to be presented and viewed by this board, even if it's a different makeup of board members. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so in that process, what does the landowner typically do with respect to public roads or those type of things when it comes to approval of a subdivision?
Well, this is where the road, I'm trying to think, maybe rephrase that.
Yeah, maybe I got a little bit ahead of myself. So a subdivider owns the land, is that right? And they want to create more parcels of land rather than just have one piece of land. So they're going to divide it into separate parcels that they can sell. That's the subdivision process, right?
Yes, yes.
And so in that, typically there's a need to figure out how people are going to access their properties. And so, and my question is, typically, and these guys probably know it, so I'm going to just lead you a little bit. Typically, the subdivider is required to grant or convey the roadways within that subdivision to the public if that's what if they're gonna become public roads.
Yeah, depending on the subdivision. In this case, the original owner owned all this land. So then they were selling off some pieces to different owners, and the road, Circle Drive Road, is there. And I think it was pretty much acknowledged as it was public then. And so with the original owner owned the whole thing, he split off this piece down using Circle Drive Road as we surveyed it in that subdivision, and split off that piece.
Okay.
So,
But in this subdivision plat, I guess the issue is that the owner dedicates or conveys the portion of Circle Drive to the county as a public road.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's pretty typical in subdivisions.
Yeah, or at least as an easement. Yeah, in this particular one, we dedicated it to the county.
To the county,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
And so this particular easement, there's a dedication to the county of Circle Drive. There's your surveyor certificate on there, and there's also then the approval of the Board of County Commissioners.
Yes,
Is that true?
yes.
Okay. Let's look at Exhibit 18. Similar but a different subdivision. And so again, would there be a dedication of the roadways shown on that to the benefit of the public?
Yeah, all roads and public ways as shown on this plat are hereby dedicated to the use of the public.
And an approval by the Board of Natrona County Commissioners?
Yeah. Yep. This was a 1970 plat. The ownership here of these lots goes over the road, and the road is dedicated as an easement in this state. For Star Wallow number 4.
And I guess I should ask this question. Both of those easements, or those subdivision plats we've talked about before, are fully approved, recorded subdivisions with the Natrona County Clerk.
Yes.
Okay. And then we've also got Exhibit 19. And that is actually recorded in 1971. And again, my question is does it dedicate easements to the public?
This one dedicates the roads within the subdivision, but this subdivision butts up to a labeled Centerline County Road, the right of way. So
It's not all, the road's not all included in there. It's
no,
just-
no, the ownership goes to the edge of the right of way, but it is depicting Circle Drive Road on here.
And again, approved by the Natrona County Commissioners.
Yes.
In your work as a surveyor, is it common to use the aerial photographs and GIS to depict information that you can't see today, but historical information?
Oh, yeah, for reference, yeah. Yeah.
And is it something that's reliable?
Yeah,
In fact, it's
Kind
maybe
of
the
the-
equivalent of DNA. It's a photograph.
Yeah,
Unless the
yeah.
photograph is altered, it's reliable, right?
yeah, yeah, and a lot of the photographs you get now are geo-referenced, so our survey data, we can put it right in the photo and it falls right on what we're
So
talking.
then you can see exactly where
Yeah.
features are or where things are.
Mhm.
Okay, I have no other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Heiser. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Spencer? Bart, on your transcript, can you search for me real quick? Exhibit 14. I think you might have, if you mentioned it, I missed it. I'm guessing that you would like him to opine on exhibit 14.
I would like him to. I think we have that. I have that was one we talked about, and it was a GLO from 1884.
Yes. It was talked about, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Heiser.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Svensson.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
And we would call Kevin Christensen.
Could you please introduce yourself to the court reporter and spell your name for us, please?
Yes, my name is Kevin Christensen, last name spelled Christensen. I am a long-standing resident of Natrona County. I am currently serving as the district manager for the U.S. Department of Interior Bureau of Land Management, High Plains District here in Casper.
Thank you, sir. Will you please raise your right hand? And do you solemnly swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So
I do.
Thank you.
And just for purposes of making sure our record is clean, the things you testified about earlier about being a lifelong resident of Casper and currently serving for the BLM, do you acknowledge those under oath as well?
I do.
All right, perfect. Well, why don't you give the commissioners a little bit of your history in Casper, about when that started, what that looked like, what you've been doing?
Yes, my family moved to Natrona County in 1974. We acquired land up on Casper Mountain a couple of years later and then subsequently developed that. I've grew up in Natrona County, product of Natrona County School Districts, graduate of the University of Wyoming. I served in the United States Army for 30 years. That was my only time away from Natrona County, but I maintained my record of home here in Natrona County during my time of service.
So let's talk then about your experience with Circle Drive. That's what brings us here. So start as a young man and tell us what your use and knowledge of Circle Drive is.
Certainly. Well, my first experience with Circle Drive was my father taking me out hunting and fishing. We would go down that route to get out to the areas where we would hunt and fish. And then later when we owned land up on Casper Mountain, we built up on Casper Mountain near the Archer Range, Hogadon Estates area. And I remember distinctly County Road 505 Circle Drive in the 1979 timeframe when we received our shipment all in one trailer of our cabin in a kit from Cody Lumber. And when that driver showed up, he made it pretty clear he was not going up the front of the mountain with that, and he was not going to be able to make some of those hairpin turns. So my family, we escorted that truck through County Road 505, much shallower grade, and that road was perfectly suitable to bring in an 18-wheel, heavily loaded truck and tractor trailer with all the materials to build a 28 by 40 foot two-story cabin. And so that was my first use of that, other than personal use for hunting and going out fishing. And then later, material handling equipment that couldn't come up the front of the mountain, we would bring it up through that access to help offload and subsequently build our place up on Casper Mountain.
And from your experience and knowledge, do other residents of the Casper Mountain area use that road for those same purposes rather than come up the face?
Yes, in fact, I think most of the people that had, a substantive amount of material that would be used for building their place probably used or at least had part of it come up that route.
Is there anything else about your personal history that you can give us with respect to Circle Drive? And I guess I should say, you still have your place?
Yes, I consider that my home. And when I was going to school at the University of Wyoming, I came and went by County Road 505. That was the easiest way to access, my home.
Okay. Still use 505 or?
I do. County Road 505 is still my preferred way when I go visit my son at college or when I go out hunting out towards the west. That's the way that I often go out.
And so when you're using that road, do you encounter other members of the public using it?
Oh, yes. As a private citizen, I see the public uses that road pretty frequently, and I think that it's commonly understood to be a county road.
Can you kind of give an example of what other uses are being made of that, if you can tell?
Well, I just see that, people are certainly transitioning through. I think it's a beautiful area to drive through. I think people appreciate the scenery of the area, and I think that people, certainly about this time of year, you'll see folks in orange parked at some of the areas, particularly on the public land side, that will access it for hunting, and also common for people to get out and hike on the public lands in that area.
Okay. Anything else from your personal standpoint?
No, I think that should cover the.
So let's talk a little bit about your knowledge and history of the road with respect to your position with the BLM. I guess give a little bit of history of what you can see from the BLM side of this road and what has gone on with respect to 505.
Well, I think I reviewed our case file and history that we have on the road. The first thing that did is we found that there was a case file established for County Road 505, looking at it from revised statute 2477 perspective. So back in the 1970s, when the Federal Land Management Policy Act was enacted, the revised statute 2477, which had essentially was a self-enacting right-of-way. It was encouraging movement out to the west. It was encouraging industry, grazing, mineral development, and all a county or state entity had to do was simply claim you could get a right-of-way across public lands, and you didn't even have to tell the federal government that you were doing so. It was essentially self-enacting by having done that. So when the Federal Land Management Policy Act came out, it repealed RS 2477 and gave that authority to the Bureau of Land Management to issue rights of way by way of, reviewing, the request and issuing that formally. There was a big push in that time to figure out what was already in existence. So you have in the late 70s and 80s what RS 2477 roads were already in existence. And so there was a case file that had been created with County Road 505 and a number of other county roads just to see what was already out there. And the purpose of that was if we're now going to be in the business of issuing rights away, we need to know what's already out there legally existing so that we're not duplicating effort off of existing rights. When the Federal Land Management Policy Act came out, it's absolutely clear that all of the existing patents, rights away are not impacted by this new law. So they're there in perpetuity if they've been established. And our case file basically just shows that as of the 80s, it shows that the county was maintaining it. We've documented county maintenance of the road. It showed that it needed to be surveyed at that time, and it shows that it had not yet been formally established or claimed.
And so you don't have it in front of you, but we're going to pull it up real quick, Exhibit 24.
It's a pretty small entry in the in our record.
This isn't your fattest file, is it?
No, this is a pretty simple statement. All of our federal records are really that simple, but it basically just says that it still waiting establishment, which literally would be anything that would show that the county had claimed it. We're we're acknowledging that it is out there and it's being maintained by the county.
And so this actually is a photograph of your file
Yes, correct.
relative to this road. And again, it doesn't say much. It just says the date that the BLM has recognized that it is there and that it's
At least at the
505
time.
exists.
Yeah, at least at the time, it was thought to be eligible by RS 2477.
So with respect then to the BLM and this being in your file and what's going on, if someone was seeking an right of way to their property across BLM, how would you and your office handle that, and how would they interplay with 505 with that?
I looked at our records. So an example would be in 2003, a right-of-way was granted across BLM for the Cheney Ranch. And that right-of-way began at County Road 505 and went to their homestead, crossing BLM. It did not grant right-of-way across the sections of County Road 505 because we were acknowledging at that time that it was public access.
And by that, just to be clear, those sections that we're talking about of 505 would be still on the BLM ground. It's just that there was no reason to grant a right-of-way across that portion of the BLM ground because it was already recognized by the BLM as a public road.
That's correct. At that time, we believed it was a public road, and our rights-of-way began from the county road to wherever it needed to go.
Let me take you back a little bit in history. In fact, I'd like to maybe go way back in history to what you know relative to the beginning of Circle Drive or County Road 505, what it was maybe initially started for, and then how maybe that has progressed over time from what you've seen. And this again, from the BLM perspective.
Yeah, I think going way back in time, I think there's a possibility that the mining activity that was taking place up on Casper Mountain, you have truckloads, wagons of ore that are coming down off of Casper Mountain. They're the front face of the mountain, the Wyoming Highway 251 wasn't built until many years later. So we know that there's ore that's coming off the mountain, and some of it's maybe coming down Jackson Canyon, some of it maybe coming down this way. We know that at least from seeing some of the historical articles, it's mentioned by name in the 1920s. It's clear that it was in the public eye. It's clear that the Board of Commissioners were directly involved with that road and knew that it was called Circle Drive in the 1920s. Our own graphic information system that we have in the BLM shows aerial imagery of that road in 1949. And so we know that there was, that road was in existence in some way for quite some time.
Okay. And does the BLM have any other particular interest in making sure that this remains a public road?
Well, we do. May 1977, we opened the Muddy Mountain Environmental Education Area, a wonderful campground that is up on the Muddy Mountain area. And that Muddy Mountain Environmental Education serves a lot of members of our public, but include people that are not from this area that travel into the area to recreate. And County Road 505 plays an important part of how people access the BLM Muddy Mountain Environmental Education Area. So much so that I think that the public that brings up a trailer or a camper generally prefers to come up County Road 505 than to come up Wyoming 251 up the face. And members of the public that visit our campground that come in either from like the Rawlins or the Laramie area, that's the primary way that they would get in, even if they're not bringing up a camper. You know, we since it was established, you know, we're talking probably 10,000 or more visitors a year that come in and visit that area, and that county road is a pretty important part of the access for the public to enjoy that facility.
And then not only for their recreational purposes, is there a concern regarding safety and evacuation, those type of things?
Well, certainly, and I would echo Mr. Hagler's comments too. BLM, we have an important firefighting function. It was just last night, I had a heavy fire engine that was dispatched to assist with the Cold Mountain Fire, and it accessed it through that same road. It's important for access, and from our perspective, you really have to consider the fact that you have, I think, over 800 homesteads now up on Casper Mountain, some of which are up there year-round. And if you have a fire that's on the face of the mountain, you're not getting anybody off, evacuating them off of the north side of the mountain down 251. You're going to have to evacuate people out the other way. And so I think you have to have consideration for the fact that that has public access just from a public safety perspective of being able to evacuate people in the event of a fire in the area.
So then in addition to the residential and recreational uses that you kind of talked about, and maybe, I guess, maybe hunting is recreational, but can you talk specifically about the use of the area for hunting and the BLM lands for hunting?
A lot of people use Muddy Mountain as a jump off point for hunting, and then there's BLM areas that you've seen on the imagery and the maps. There's a lot of intermixed public lands that are in the area, and that's how the public accesses those lands.
And so then one last question. Based on your review, has the BLM ever contributed to anything financially to the maintenance of 505?
I have no record that the BLM has ever contributed funds to the maintenance. We believe that was all county.
I have no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heiser. Any questions from the board? Thank you.
All right, before we close or do anything else, I'd like to confirm and offer exhibits 1 through 27 inclusive for admission. We didn't talk to 1, 2, and 3, but those 1 and 3 are affidavits of publication and of notice of mailing. And so,
And rely on Wyoming statute to count those as declarations.
Right.
of miss-
and they're basically compliance with the statute. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Thank you. Exhibits 1 through 27 will be admitted for consideration.
Thank you very much. And I don't know what the pleasure of the commissioners are and what you would like to hear. I know you've been attentive to the evidence, and I appreciate that. I know it was a little bit long and in depth. I do have, though, some proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law that I'd like to present to you and consider. I don't know if you'd like to have them as I'm kind of going through them, or if you'd like to just have me present those and you look at those. What would be your pleasure? I don't know that you want to hear. I can stand up and give an oratory closing argument and be really impassioned if you want, but I want to be respectful of your time and your other commitments.
If you have copies of the findings of fact and conclusions of law, I think that if we pass them out now, we can kind of go with you as you're giving us the overview.
I certainly have a couple of them. I'm not sure how many we have. And I will also give you this caveat. I know because it tweaks a little bit from some of the testimony, there's a couple places that I need to make some tweaks. But I think Deirdre might be running to get some more. And so I would be happy to make sure that each of you have a part as we're kind of going through those to have some discussion. And so maybe if you want to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll have those and we'll kind of go through them.
Well, I think that unless you're going to make those changes within the next 5 minutes, I think you can start. She can make whatever copies are still necessary right in this room, right? Our commissioners meeting room here.
Well, she just left.
No, she's there. And
so sneaky.
And then we can just keep going.
Perfect. That'd be great. When you get the findings of fact, it will look a lot like a legal pleading because that's what it is. But there's some specific things that need to be done. Initially, the preamble part that you need to be aware of is this process started with you enacting a resolution 5624 to say, let's establish 505 as a county road officially. When you look at the history of this, that came to your attention because of what the Woodburys did. When they looked, they had Mr. Masterson go look and say, look, is this a county road? And they couldn't find anything. And then they took a position that they were going to block that road off. And that's what led us to being in a position of needing to get it established to get that accomplished. So that's one of the findings that we have in there about their action, their letter that you've seen not only previously, but we presented today. So that's what started the process. When you kick off that resolution, the statute 24-1-101 kicks into play and says, okay, you can establish, and this is a summarization, but you can establish a county road one of three ways. You can establish it by condemnation, you can establish it by voluntary owner consent, or you can establish it by prescription or adverse possession. And so we're in the process of establishing by adverse possession. And so when you look at the facts that have gone on in this, I think it's important to recognize that, first of all, we have to meet the substantive stuff of the statute, which means we needed to have a survey done, which was done and was recorded. That survey is Exhibit 2. I'll learn. And it was recorded. Then there was a notice of publication, or excuse me, there was the notices that were sent out, and there's Exhibit 1 is an affidavit of mailing to mail all of those notices to the property owner, and then there was a publication. And that Exhibit 3 is the the affidavit of publication from the Casper Star, including the affidavit of the person that did the publication. So all of those initial requirements have been met. Then we get into the point where we have the deadline for objections, which was October 2nd. No objections were made. So then we moved into the hearing, which is today. And so the issue again for you, and that's why the finding of facts are crucial. But and I've got conclusions of law in there, and you can look at the citations, and I can go through those with you too if you would like. But the real issue is, did Natrona County do one of two things, because it's an or in there, but I think we've done both of them. One is, did you assume control of the road? And the things that you did to assume control of the road are obviously signage, road opening and closing, cleaning and taking care of cattle guards, doing all the blading, although blading I think falls into the maintenance portion of it. But you had assumed control over it. The landowners were calling and saying, look, will you take care of the washboards in the road? Would you take care of cleaning the cattle guard? So I think there's no question that the assumption of control took place. The other one is, or if it's been maintained, and that's that Lincoln County case that I was talking about. And the evidence, I think, is really clear, and that's why we gave you the 10-year window in Exhibit 4, that you guys provided a lot of maintenance to this road. It goes beyond that. I think that's been historical, and in fact, if you go back to the historical articles, I think the Natrona County commissioners were involved in trying to establish a circle drive way back in the 20s, early 30s, and thinking that it would be a good thing to do. And so in that regard, and when you get the findings of fact and conclusions of law, I'm trying to pull out from there for you exact findings that you need to make a consideration of, but then I'm referring you to the various exhibits that are in there that reference those things. Some specific things that I can tell you that maybe aren't things that were testified to, for example, is you can go into that Exhibit 5 and you can find, okay, here's when we put up the barriers. You can see the dates. They're typically in November, sometimes in October, or sometimes in December. But you can see the dates the snow barriers were put up. Those type of things are all in there. And you can look through all of that detail to see, okay, we have assumed control of this road. And so going through those findings of fact, I see you're now getting it in front of you. And so I'm happy to go through that number by number if you would like. And then again, we can answer any specific questions you have. Again, the first couple are your resolution is one. The plat recording, Exhibit 2. When you get to number 3, that has the publication, which is referring to Exhibit 3. And finding of fact number 4 is the mailing, which is referring to Exhibit 1. 5 is just in there because that's referring to the statute that says you need to record a survey and then provide notice. So it helps meet those things. The evidence, I think, is that, and this is a finding that you have to make, but I think if you look at those exhibits, those aerial photographs, and the information from the articles, it appears that there's been various forms of a road in that area since the early 1920s, but you guys can make a determination as to when that happened. I cannot tell you who constructed it, but I think from those articles and those things, it's a fair conclusion that somehow Natrona County was involved in the construction of the road when it happened. Again, we have a lot of property owners. We sent out notices to 64 interested persons. Most of those are property owners. A few of them were mortgage holders. And you can see from Exhibit 11, which is the one that shows all of the deeded ownership, the federal ownership, and the state ownership, that there is various ownership that the road crosses. But for that deeded portion, which I think is less than half of it, those persons all received notice of that through the statutory process. Moving on through that, we've got the existence of the road. And the other thing I think that I think is important is the timing of the various photographs that really take us back in time to say, okay, we've got something that existed here. And again, for purposes of your consideration, all we need is a consecutive and continuous 10-year period. Any 10-year period will do. And I think we have many more than that. Again, the road provides access to all of the residents. In fact, it's not just the 66 that it crosses. It's everybody else that has an easement across one of those 66. And the estimates, there's somehow 800 homesteads up there, all of which somehow are getting to Circle Drive. And I think that's an important access. You saw information about the condition of the road, both the paved portions and the graveled portions. And I believe if you take a look at the videos, if you want, those videos start at the beginning at the Hogadon turnoff, drive to the end of the pavement, then start again and drive down the graveled portion. And it gives you a really good sense of what's gone on with the road and the condition of the road and the control that the county has made of it. And in addition to that, the maintenance has been supplied to it. So those exhibits and those photographs, I think, show, I mean, to some extent, the signs out there saying County Road 505, and it's been there for an awful long time. Then I think as we're moving on through that, again, the exhibits for notice, I think we've got taken care of, but there's some other references to that. I think if you can review 4, 5, and 6, again, that's county expenditure of funds. And again, I think the estimate of what it would cost to replace that road gives you an idea of what the funds have been historically. The beauty of it is Natrona County has made payments on it over the years and didn't have to build it today or pay acquisition costs if you constructed it today. Historical evidence of the photographs and the quad sheets certainly show that that's been in existence for a long time. The evidence is that it gets bladed at least twice a year. I think that goes back further than just the 2014 sheet, but you can see that it's bladed in the 2014 sheet. You basically have receipts for the payments in 2014. The amount that the county has paid since 2014 through 2024 is $213,000. Is actual out-of-pocket expenses for caring for Circle Drive. Again, we talk about the snow closure part. I think that's a clear control. Even when that's, I mean, the sheriff is you. So if the sheriff requests that it be closed and you close it, that's the county's control. And I'm trying to go through these quickly. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about that. I think some other things that talk about the county control, one of the things that I think is important to recognize is that both the BLM and their process of saying, okay, this road's it is being maintained by the county, we're going to treat it as a county road and a public road, that is an acknowledgement that the county has been exercising that control by an adjacent landowner. And the other piece of evidence I think is important is the approval as an FAS road. While that was not under your administration, that was this board seeking approval to be able to get federal funds, and went through the State Highway Commission to do that. And the federal, the road was designated as an FAS 1301. So it would be available for county funds. Now, we did look, and we can't tell you that it was ever done, or I'd be in here with that evidence, but we know that it was approved for that process. We don't have any evidence that any landowner ever objected, nor do we have any evidence that any landowner ever gave any permission. So I think both of those are interesting lacks of evidence that allow us to assume that we've taken control of that and we've administered it. One of the things I do want to talk to you a little bit about, because I think it's important, and it's one of the areas that's a bit of a challenge, because I can't prove that for all 13 and a half miles, the full 66-foot easement has been used for every inch of that. But I think from your standpoint, you can see how important it is for all of that, and it's been used certainly for segments of it, and only because that's when it was needed. And so I think the whole easement would be used and is available for your use, and should be available for your use for the entire length, because you don't know when you need that to come up in the future, whether it's for utility right-of-ways or turnarounds or snow piles or whatever that may be. And so that determination to make it 66 feet, which is as wide as a county road can be, I think, you know, you've got to make sure that you look at this and say, okay, yeah, we've made use of it. One of the interesting things that I'll make just a comment on is there was one photograph that shows the Woodbury's corrals that are by the road, but I'll let you know those are well outside the 66-foot easement distance. So we did check that. And I do think the other thing I think that's interesting about that, especially in this area, is the fire suppression issue with the road, and having that be have the ability to make use of that right of way to fight fires if need be. I don't believe we have any questions or issues at all about the fact that the public has used that, and we heard some of that, which is not part of this hearing, but you've heard that comment. You guys, I don't know whether you've personally been on the road, but I do think it's certainly been open to the public. I've been on it. I used to attend Camp Wyoba, so that maybe says a little bit about me. But I've been on it, and actually took my kids on it when we lived in Rawlins. They went to Camp Wyoba, so. Have been on that road and made use of that many times. And so the other thing I think that's helpful is both the information of our surveyors. Going back to the GLO, I know that's not an exact depiction of there being a road there, but that's sure evidence that a road was there and it got there somehow. And it may not be the exact location, but that road now has been actually located by the Centerline survey. And I think based on the actions of your predecessors and where you're at, I think you can say we've adversely possessed this road, and that we've made use of it for a 10-year period, open notoriously, continuously, and that we have maintained that road during that period. I'm happy to answer any questions about that or the findings of fact. I know there's a lot of them there, but I think that's all encompassed in what we presented to you today. I'm happy to talk with you about the findings of fact. I'm also happy to talk with you about the law Again, I've got the law set forth in there as well. I think the important parts, again, is recognizing that in adverse possession, you can't take it if it's given with permission, but with it being a governmental thing, you don't have to, you can overcome that permission by assuming control of it, by the public assuming control of it, and by the continuous maintenance for 10 years. And I shouldn't have said and by, or by, because Lincoln County says or. So I think you actually have met both those prongs, and I think the findings of fact and conclusions of law will allow you to establish this road. I do think you need to enter an order that says we're ordering this road now established. Then that order would be recorded along with the survey with the county clerk, and that would create County Road 505 as an official county road. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Heiser. We appreciate your efforts in this matter. Thank you, Mr. Ford. Thank you to all that have been here today, including the witnesses. We appreciate the information. We will have some time for commissioner comments later. I think the questions are, the questions ought to be directed to our council for questions, comments, concerns, changes to the proposed findings of fact, or any other procedural items. So with that, are there questions for Mr. Heiser? Commissioner North?
The only question that I'd have is how we propose making a motion when we do get to a point, or if that is actually what we do to make sure that we're encompassed in everything that's been covered.
That's a good question and a fair question. So a couple things I guess I'll say. To some extent, you're a little bit like a jury, in that you need to make sure you've evaluated this and you all conclude that that's what that you think the evidence supports that. If you conclude that the evidence supports that, then that gets kind of reported, and then I believe that your council has a separate resolution to say, yep, that's what we're going to do, and we're going to adopt these findings of fact and conclusions of law. And so I think that's the process. I mean, you've got the evidence. You're now to the point of making the decision, and then once that decision is made, it's a matter of publishing that decision.
Heather, do you have the form of a motion and or the resolution? Mr. Heiser, I wanted to turn to the, thank you, the recital portion on page 2. You have a couple blank lines for interested parties.
I had that just in case there was another property owner that stood up and said, I own this property and the road crosses me. I don't think we had any of that. The only landowner that was present was Woodbury's. And I thought the Woodbury's might be here in person, but obviously that would be changed to say it was Mr. Masterson.
Yeah, I was going to suggest the following. When I see the word appear, I think to me as a retired attorney, I feel like that's a fairly formal step. So my thought, and then at the hearing, whether they were here at the hearing or just on the date of the hearing, I think is probably better, because we really had two separate and distinct components, one being public comment period and one being this actual hearing. So I was going to suggest that sentence read, the following interested parties were also, let's see, maybe you don't need also. The following interested parties were present on the date of the hearing, and then list them: John Masterson on behalf of Woodbury Land and Livestock, LLC, and Walt and Stephanie Woodbury, and then B, Rosemary Saban, C, Tracy Lamont, D, Sharon Hazelton Seams. I'm not sure if I pronounced all those correctly, but I think we had the sign-in sheet, and I would suggest maybe we do list them, and then if they're just present on the date of the hearing, I think we're in good shape.
Okay.
So that, otherwise, I reviewed the findings and conclusions, and I don't have any questions or concerns or additions or changes, and I think it's in pretty close to final form.
There is one thing that I would point out, I think that is, it is a math error of some origin. I think if you look at finding of fact at number 18, on the page 7 of that at the top, there's a number there of 277,000. I think that technically should be 213,760.31.
Very good. Heather, you've given us this draft resolution adopting the findings. I assume you've approved that to form and content?
Yes, there is a typo, however, Mr. Chairman, that we'll want to correct before you do so.
Okay. Aside from that, do you believe it's in final form?
Mr. Chairman, probably a little too formal, but just to be sure, once Mr. Heiser was completed with what I'll term his closing statement and submission of finding facts, conclusion of law, proposed order to you, I believe at that point, any evidence or testimony in this matter would be closed as of that point in time. The discussions after Mr. Heiser's statements and presentation to you would then be essentially your jury deliberations at this point, and coming up with what you believe is your final order,
Thank you, Mr.
final
Hearing-
act.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner. Then I think we defer back to you for the time being.
And if there's nothing else from Mr.
There's nothing
Heiser,
else, I'd be happy to close. I'm happy to answer any other questions if there are any, but.
So I'll present this matter then back to the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Looking through the conclusion law and everything, I just want to kind of verbally chat about that just a little bit. Supreme Court does finds that this path that we're on, the law that we're using and everything, the statutes, there are constitutional, and the county would be authorized to take adverse possession, correct?
Well, and so I have to give you again, I was the attorney for the landowner in the Boykin case. And I have to say that I did everything I could to try to keep the county from putting a road to a fishing area between his house and his barn, and I couldn't get it done. So yes, it is constitutional. It has been established. It has been done before. So yes, I'm very confident that you have the ability to do that as long as the statute is followed and the evidence is put before you, which we have done.
Okay, thank you.
And if there's no other questions, then I will turn this matter for deliberation back over to the Board of County Commissioners. I have a stack of exhibits 1 through 27 here, as well as these here. The board is welcome to review these materials. I don't believe I need to retain this copy from my records. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll hand this stuff back over to you.
Very good. And I will go back to our county attorney. Is the resolution adopting the findings of fact in final form with, other than with respect to that typo or that you referenced?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I believe it is.
Okay. Commissioners, we will have discussion if there's a motion that's seconded. I would at this time entertain a motion to adopt the proposed findings of fact, conclusions of law, and order as modified and establish County Road 505 as a county highway by prescription.
I move to accept the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the order and the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Laird, seconded by Commissioner Friel. Any discussion? Commissioner North.
I believe that without a doubt that it has been shown that this has been a county road for approximately 100 years that we know of, and probably longer than that. And the details that have been presented have supported that with the evidence and the conclusions and the statement of facts. So I don't, in my mind, there's no doubt at all that this is a county road and has been long.
Thank you, Commissioner Laird.
Mr. Heiser, thank you. I think you've done an admirable job. Left no stone unturned. The evidence that you presented to me was quite convincing. And so is your preparation with respect to the documents you've submitted. And once again, I, as a commissioner of this county, thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I have been clear since the first moment this matter came before the county as an issue when the Woodburys raised it, that this was an absolutely critical road for full and unrestricted public use. I have personally run and biked on the entirety of Circle Drive Road and have driven it. I have run in the and biked in the outside the travel way, especially when vehicles are coming or going and I need to get out of the way. So with respect to, and just touching on the full width, 66 feet, I think especially in high traffic events, whether they're the eclipse situations that Mr. Hagler alluded to, or fire evacuation and public health, safety, and welfare situations that both Mr. Hagler and Mr. Christensen referred to, I think that it's critical that the county have the entire width, and I think that over the course of the last 100+ years, I am certain that members of the public, whether for hiking, biking, walking, passing wide loads like semi-trucks or building materials, inclement weather when you have to kind of go around this hazard or that drift, that it would be my belief that almost every inch along that entire Circle Drive way has been utilized by members of the public at one time or another. I think this is a critical road for retention as a public road by the county, and I appreciate your efforts, and I think that you've done a thorough job. And I guess we will call for the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Very good. That motion has passed.
Mr. Chairman, will this be signed today?
I didn't hear you.
Will this be signed today?
It will be signed in due course. It may or may not be. Sometimes they are signed, sometimes they're not. We have to make a couple changes to that recital.
I will make those before I leave and get those to Deirdre.
Very good. It'll get done soon, Commissioner Laird, for sure. So at this time, we can have short commissioner comments to the extent commissioners feel so inclined. Commissioner Laird.
You know, when Mr. Christensen testified, it reminded me that in 1968, I had a 1966 Chevelle, and my wife and I went up over the mountain and went down and connected on the road and drove to Laramie to start law school. And I never did that again. It was a little rough on that car, But my wife wanted to see what happened, and that was a memory I'd just forgotten until he mentioned going over there and going down to Laramie at UW. So, you know, this is a good county, and I think we want to do the best job we can for our citizens. So I think that Mr. Nicolasen's organizing this, hiring your firm, hiring the hearing examiner. This was a very well presented issue, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Commissioner North.
I think we're all happy to have this taken care of at this point in time. I don't think there was any doubt in our minds what the evidence was going to support, but you have to have that as evidence, and you have to have it presented in a manner that's presentable if it's ever appealed. And I do appreciate everybody that has worked on that, both staff and Mr. Heiser on this and getting this taken care of, and I appreciate our hearing examiner. This was probably one of the easiest hearings you'd ever have to deal, because there wasn't not being contested. That makes it a whole lot easier, but I do appreciate all the effort that has gone into this to make sure that we've got this road maintained, and we just need to move forward from now on. So thanks.
Commissioner Friel.
I just want to say that obviously glad we got through this one here. We have momentum going. I do believe that we need to do a thorough review of all county roads, make sure that they have been established, and if they have not been, we don't stop at this. We need to get through every one of these roads and make sure that they're taken care of so we don't go back through this again. Thank you.
Commissioner Mill.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Mr. Heiser as well. Job well done. Staff as well, from Mike to Heather and everybody on staff. Thank you very much. Mr. Examiner, thank you for your time. I'm glad to see that this was completed. In my mind, this had never been an issue. It was always a public roadway, one form or another. We drove cows through that area. It was a main artery into the old Casper Medicine Bow Highway, which also ran through our previous ranch. In my mind, with my family's historical tribal knowledge, if you would, this was a mute issue. It's unfortunate that this came about. You know, when you buy property, you buy it in the condition it is. That obviously that road was a main thoroughfare at the time when the property was purchased, and should have been a consideration. It's just too bad we had to go down this road, but it is what it is. I agree with Commissioner Friel. We need to take this elephant and eat it one bite at a time with the county roads, Mike, and we need to get all this completed before we have more issues in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, in echoing Commissioner Friel and Commissioner Milne's comments, I think that one exhibit that Mr. Christensen talked about, which was a recognition by the BLM in 1982, or, you know, going back that far, this needed to be done. And as we all know, there's no problem until there's a problem. This county has been aware for quite some time that some of these roads, despite being used for 100 years or for decades and for being maintained very well by Mr. Hagler and Road and Bridge Department, they still might not be technically, conclusively, perfectly recorded and established the way the state statute and the way some attorneys feel is appropriate. And so we are sometimes forced by private landowners to finish things. and we have started this, and this one is done. And we're gonna need to finish a couple more. So we appreciate everybody's help, time, interest, and attention to the matter. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.